So if I smell like garlic and Italian, I'm sorry.
You ever watch that show Sheldon?
Yes.
That's his favorite dinner.
Spaghetti with cut up hot dogs.
hot dogs.
Yeah.
His mother got the ratio down just right.
Good evening. This is the Zoning Board of Appeals. It's January 17th, 2019. Could I have some order, please? We're starting the meeting. Thank you. It's January 17th, 2019 at 7:15 PM. We're at the Littleton Town Offices on 37 Shattuck Street, room 103 in Littleton, Mass. We have a sign-in sheet at the door. I would like to make sure that everyone who's here has signed in on the sign-in sheet. Time is 7:15 PM, and I'm going to open with a proposed, discussion on a proposed modification to the comprehensive permit at Village Green. Come forward, please. How are you?
We have, just some,
Introduce yourself for the record, please.
I'm Jenny White.
And I'm Heather Barkhouse.
Your last name?
Barkhouse,
you.
B-A-R-K-H.
You have a shortage? Are we sharing?
We can share. We can share.
Sharon, send you Sharon.
Last time. This is from
Oh, you
last
have
time.
it.
I don't know if
You
they
have
have the
it.
same.
No, this is a new one, I think.
It's the same sign with a little bit more detail.
Is it exactly the same size?
No, it's larger than what's existing.
Why?
Excuse me, can we just let her present first, and then we'll ask questions? Thank you.
So it's a little bit larger than what's existing because we wanted to illuminate it so that it's brighter. And right now, we find that people miss the sign, so they drive by and they wind up having to turn around. So this will be a little bit more eye-catching.
What's the existing size?
The existing size is 22 square feet,
And the new one?
is 43.5 square feet.
Shall I go there?
How much bigger is the base than the one now?
In the picture, you can see that the one existing doesn't have, it's not the same base.
So it's much taller than the present one.
Yep, it's taller.
Our existing bylaws allow, right, with my zoning regs with me. Do you remember what the existing
I have the regs.
regs?
Can I ask
I think it
you
does
to
on
make,
50 square feet.
Miss
84 inches.
Ms. White, can I ask you to make a full presentation? I'd like to know the height, width, and size of the existing, the height, width, and size of the new, and where they're different, so that the board has a full picture and anyone that's listening has a full picture.
Sure.
Then the board will ask you questions, okay?
Yep. So the existing sign is 72 inches wide, 44 inches in height, totaling 22 square feet. The new proposed sign will be 84 inches in height, 24 inches in width, totaling 43.5 square feet. It will be illuminated from the interior of the sign, as opposed to having a spotlight on the sign, which is what we have currently. The base will be 24 inches in height and 120 inches in width.
Just, when you gave us the height of this proposed sign, were you including the height of the base?
Yes.
Yes.
No, I think,
Yes.
but I don't think she gave us the right width.
No, that's what.
Well, the base is 120,
So the width is
but the
120.
sign,
width
the
is
sign is
120, I'm sorry.
160.
Yeah, 120 is the width,
Yep.
okay.
All right,
Thank
that makes
you.
more sense.
And now, this is essentially a request for variance, so I need you to, well, it's a modification of the special permit, but you're varying the dimensions. So I need you to tell us significant reasons why you think you need a bigger sign, please.
Okay, well, the first one's what I mentioned in terms of it catching people's attention. Right now, we find that the existing sign, people drive right by it. So we feel that this is going to be helpful. The next reason is that our company who handles the management for the property, we have a couple of other properties in the area, and we like our signs to be somewhat consistent, as well as the owners. Am I forgetting anything? Those are the main reasons. So the top reason really is that it's eye-catching, and we don't want people driving by and having to turn around repeatedly in the Acton Nagog Plaza.
Okay, now, there's a comprehensive permit on this property. Do you happen to have that decision with you? Do we have that decision here on the sign? No.
Not if it's not.
Okay. Now, board members, who has questions? Cheryl, you wanted to go first?
No, I have no questions. I think I have very strong opinions.
Okay.
And quite frankly, I'm horrified.
Let's do
But
questions.
beside that,
Could you
I,
comment on the size of the Avalon sign, which is nearby?
The Avalon sign, I can't comment on it. I don't know exactly what it is. I mean, it's comparable.
It's not comparable. It's like probably a quarter of the size of this.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's not interior illumination. And then you have a representation of this is what it would be illuminated?
Yes.
Okay.
You don't think illuminating the sign as it presently stands or about that size would be sufficient? I mean, people driving by in the daytime too, or just at night?
We hear it from people driving by in the daytime and at night. It's a repeated event that
you
occurs
don't think
often.
that coming up over the hill may be why people don't see the sign, no matter how brightly lit it might be or how huge it might be. The reason that people might not see it right away is they have to come up over the hill and start down before the sign is there. And the entrance is right up over the hill, which is one of the things that gave us pause when we were allowing this 40B to go in, something we researched quite heavily. This sign is grotesquely bigger than what our zoning bylaws allow, grotesquely.
Wait, can we not characterize it?
I mean, it's
We
just,
hear you.
it's just, I don't quite know what to say about it.
So I think our goal tonight, I mean, you're listening to our whys, and we want to hear from you guys what is going to work.
Littleton traditionally has not liked interlit signs. We've had many examples in meetings about sign bylaws where we have actually talked about forbidding interlit signs and passing bylaws that would not allow that. We also don't like signs that are this large. I mean, there are going to be a certain number of people who aren't aware and aren't looking at their Google Maps enough to realize that just over that hill right there is the entrance. And you are going to, no matter how big you make your sign, unless it's 2 stories tall, you're going to have people that are going to miss that entrance, I realize. You can't solve that with a sign. People are going to have to go down the end of Mannion Place and turn around. It happens. But most people who live there and know where they're going aren't going to have that issue. This sign is just way too large. You need to get it back into proportion with what our sign bylaws allow. And our sign bylaws right at the moment are, in my opinion, very generous. What we've talked about, the bylaws that have been proposed by the planning board and put in front of the selectmen as possibilities are much smaller. So please, look at our bylaws and pay attention to them, because they're there for a reason.
Interlit signs right now are okay in accordance with the bylaws.
They are allowed in accordance with the bylaw, that's
Okay.
correct.
At this time.
At this time.
However, this is a variance situation, so you could do as of right without a variance an interlit sign, but once you come for a variance, we have the opportunity to comment on all aspects of the sign.
I don't, procedurally, is that the decision in your hand?
Yeah,
Procedurally, I don't think it's a variance. It's a modification of the
Okay.
special permit, so it's not a variance.
Okay.
We do not
It
have to
says-
treat it,
oh, okay, go ahead.
we don't have to treat it with the same criteria as a variance. What we have to decide is, whether the special permit can be modified to change the sign. We decided at the last meeting that this request is insubstantial, so we don't have to go through the formal notice requirements of modifying a special permit. We can do it as a board here, but it's not a variance, and your comments are all valid, and that's what they're here for.
Now,
I do want to make that point.
one of the regulations in the permit was that it's only allowed to be lit from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Which they could do with an internally lit.
Of course they
as
can.
well. So they
But-
could maintain that. What's the,
But it was supposed to be,
can you read it out loud for the board? And the,
to permit installation of a sign that will be 12 square feet on each side, which is in excess of 9 square feet. So 9 square feet were allowed, and we upped it to 12 square feet. To permit, but this one was 22, so I think we upped it again. May not have quite the right places. The on-premises signs, to permit installation of lighted sign for leasing. Lighting of leasing sign permitted between 7 a.m. and 9 p.m., 7 days a week.
isn't there a separate sign now that says leasing? One that says what the name of the place is? Here it is. Because what we did with the other one, it's on her presentation. What we did with the other one is we counted the Village Green with phone number signs as the sign area, and then we allowed all these panels that said apartments for lease, now renting, available, and I don't know what that bottom line says, I can't read it, but,
1, 2, 3 bedroom.
thank you. So if you took all of that area, bear with me a minute. If you took all of that area and measured it, would you know what that area is filling? And your sign doesn't look like it's going to have all those hanging panels that are advertising places for
Those
lease
are
and rent.
totally separate signs. Are we not going to allow them to put up the other signs now?
Well, they're proposing that they don't want to or need to. They're going to put leasing or for rent.
No, they're
What's on the
proposing,
sign?
they have the now leasing sign and the main ID sign.
It's mainly the logo that's different on the other signs.
Where is that going to be?
Well, it's, see, here's the main ID sign, and then this is right here.
We are taking off those slats at the bottom, now renting available 1, 2, 3 bedrooms.
But that still was included in the, yeah, but that still was made up the 22 square feet. So it's just, this is more than twice as big, and if you're designing your sign,
It's
please,
28.
please keep in mind the character of
This is
Littleton.
extra.
When you ask for a size variance, then we have the right to talk about how it's lit.
Yep.
We don't have the right to talk about how it's lit if you're not asking for a size variance.
So I want to return to that one more time, everyone, please. If you go to the little insert that says existing 42 inches wide by 28 inches high, that 42 by 28 is only measuring the panel that says Village Green and the phone number.
No, it included the apartments for lease sign underneath it, because that's permanent and fixed there.
But
They did
not
add
the 3
now
green
renting
ones.
available and 1, 2, 3 bedrooms, which I think they did without permission.
So those were not included in the measurement.
Right, because they weren't,
Okay.
they weren't allowed.
Okay.
really.
I want to make a comment that I do like the base better. And I don't have a particular problem with internally lit, but based on the board's comments, I think the size is giving everyone some heartburn.
Okay, fair enough.
Yep.
Well, it's almost double in width and double in height, is double in height.
So if we're sending, if we're sending them home with no Cupid doll, can we give them some guidance on whether or not the board would be inclined to increase their size in any way, shape, or form on this size, on this sign?
Residential areas, our zoning bylaws basically say 9 square feet. We increased it to 22 square feet because that is a busy road, and traffic does, and it did have the problem of going up over the hill. I certainly have no problem with a new sign that's the same size.
And even-
You know, even if you wanted to fill in kind of some of the bottom, that where they did it without permission, I wouldn't probably have a problem with that.
Signs. I think those are two different signs, though.
There are
There's
two
one
different
sign and there's a second set of signs, right? So there's the main one, and then further down the road a little bit is the one that has the now leasing.
now leasing,
So
yeah.
it's two different sets of, yeah.
Thank you.
I actually think the illumination in the manner that you proposed is okay. I mean, we have some of those in the center of town. Bank
As
of
long as it's
America.
not too bright.
They're not bright at all. In fact, they're probably less bright than some other ones. If you really were just concerned about the visibility, you could consider raising it. I mean, we might want to give you the base a little higher than it is now,
Okay.
but a 10-foot sign is just too big.
Does this impact site views at all either, as far as pulling in and out of there?
No.
I think it's far enough.
No,
back.
as far as it being bigger than what it currently is?
I don't think it would, because, there's nothing, there's no one pulling out of the swamp behind it.
Yeah.
Plus, they can't put the sign on the state property.
Right, it has
So
to be
it's
set
pushed-
back,
It's set back.
Yeah.
because that's a bus stop right there, too.
Right.
I would agree with Jeff, if it's raised up a bit on a nice base, I don't have too much concern, but to double the width and double the height, that's a lot. Especially
Well,
like
the-
you said, 10 feet.
The zoning code says 9 square feet, right, for a sign?
Yeah, and we've already let them
We-
go to
we let
20.
'em
We've already gone to 22, so, then let them go to 44, or whatever
Yeah.
it is, I think could be slapping somebody in the face. I mean, there's a reason why it's only supposed to be 9 square feet. Now, I understand it's a big, large apartment house in the background and lots of, so you feel for the fact that it's a bigger business back there, but the sign's still,
I
can't agree to go.
I just
It'd be bigger
can't
and
help
bigger.
but wonder about the context of, you have another apartment complex that has a sign that's much smaller.
What size will it need?
That's not lit, yeah. And this sign is so big that you maybe could see it from where the other sign is. So I don't think we're, obliged to consider that context. And replacing the sign, fine, but it should be a similar size.
Can I just poll those members I haven't heard from yet? Jillian, I think we heard from you. Mark?
It does seem to comply with all the sign regulations if it was a commercial district. So to say that, it's not in keeping with Littleton, we have signs like this all over town. Yeah, it's a residentially zoned area, but it is on a pretty busy road. It's not a cul-de-sac, with a whole bunch of gambrels and colonials. So it's on a busy road. It's residential, but there's a big apartment building, you're gonna have people coming and going, they're trying to do business there. If you're renting, you're doing business. Personally, I don't have a problem with it, but then, that's just me, so.
Thank you. Alan?
I wouldn't go for a size increase, base change, I would go with that, but it's plenty big in my opinion, and, I think, I don't have any problem seeing it coming up the street, coming up at a reasonable speed, so I wouldn't grant it.
So it sounds like no one else cares so much about the interlit sign, so if you stay the same size, you can probably get the board to agree to an interlit sign of your design. But
And to put it in perspective, that's about a 5-foot table, and that distance is probably closer to 10 feet. And if you look at those two comparisons, it's mammoth.
What's the speed limit there?
What do they do, or what's the?
The highway.
Just saying, what's the speed limit?
I think it's 45, it just changed.
There's a stoplight right there.
right,
Well,
You
yeah,
have
but
to-
what is the speed?
Just beyond, as you're coming into Littleton, just beyond this place, the speed limit goes up to 50, but it's
Yeah.
45 as you go by the
I
entrance.
thought it was still 35 as you
That's
go
why
by.
people miss it.
No,
I
it's
don't
50.
mind them
They're
missing
missing it because they're coming up over.
It's
the-
45 coming out of
This is
Acton,
taller.
and then it changes to
There
50
are
in Littleton.
houses directly across the street. There are actual houses that people live in.
Yeah.
And it's not like it's in a highway business district.
And we talk about the entrance to Littleton and how proud we are of the farms that we have along there and how scenic it looks. We talk about, even the garden club and trying to do that little island across the street was very careful with what it did and kept it looking,
Nice.
yeah, and rural.
Okay, have we given you enough to take home and come back? Do you want to
In
continue?
terms of, so what I'm hearing is that we can keep the same width and height of our existing sign, but we can raise it. Is that right?
With the base that you've shown, if you,
With
I
this
mean, not
base.
like 6 feet, but if you.
We should give it-
Because actually, the one that's there is a little low, and they have some plantings in front of it
Yeah.
that do obscure it somewhat.
And the base is really nice on this one.
Yeah.
If you raise it a little bit, I don't think you have to come back, because our decision didn't restrict the height.
Yes, it did,
With the base?
yes.
What's it say on the height?
Premises to permit the installation of a sign that be 12 square feet on each side. But what they put there is bigger, so we must have done it before. But it also talks about height. I think they need to come back. I think they need to come back and show us what they're going to do. And in the meantime, I'll research
Can I-
what
can I
exactly
see
we
that?
allowed.
The building department may approve the exact same size sign with a changed base. So before, I mean, I'll continue you next month. But if that's all you're doing is changing the base, and the building department doesn't have a height in the decision, they might be able to approve the exact same size. Because that's not a substantial modification, that's not a modification of your special permit.
But the overall square footage will be larger, the overall footprint of the sign will be.
No, because you don't count that base in the footprint, it's only
Yeah,
if we
just
limited
counted
the height.
sign, you know, because
That's
they're
it.
usually on posts
Yeah.
and, yeah.
Do you know if there's like an ideal preference on height that maybe we could, build
Well,
a new
I-
layout for?
Listen, if you did something on a big standard up, 15 feet high, yeah, that would not be good.
A school bus driver should, sitting in his school bus, which is raised up, should be able to see over it. A school bus stops there, a school bus driver should be able to see over. A sedan driver doesn't need to see over, but a school bus driver trying to turn around or pull out of that intersection should be able to see over that sign to see if traffic's coming.
Okay.
I'm gonna tell you that this comprehensive permit did give waivers, and it says, to permit the installation of one sign with 24 square feet each side, which is what you have, and then the second sign is 12 square feet, and that's what they have there. Both are in excess of 9 square feet, but we gave that waiver. So if you stay with the 24 square feet each side, I do not see a height restriction on this sign.
Okay.
And it does say both can be lit, and then the hours of illumination are in this decision.
Yeah.
So if you're going to light it internally, and you're going to comply with the hours of illumination, and you go back to the building department, the zoning enforcement officer or the assistant can read this decision and say that sign is not a change at all, and you don't need this board's decision to do it. I shouldn't say not a change at all. Not a variation from the comprehensive permit that was granted. Okay?
Can I just ask a question about the hours of illumination?
Yes.
What was, were they 7 at night to 9?
I'm not reading that fast, but I heard
7 a.m.
Cheryl read it.
7 to 9 p.m.
7 days a
9
week.
p.m. I don't know why it would need to be
They wanted
lighted
the
during
lights
day,
turned
but-
off at 9 PM so it wouldn't be pollution for the houses that were facing it.
Sure.
I'm going to ask you to check that with the building inspector, only because this decision covers all three lots, all three uses that were on that property, so it covers the apartment sign, and it also covers the homes for sale sign. And so I don't know which the illumination reference is. I'm not
Okay.
reading that today,
Check it.
tonight, okay? But the building inspector can help you with that. And then let's give you a spot on next month's meeting in case you have to come back, but I have a feeling you're not going to have to come back.
Great.
7:15, please, on next month, and I'll take a motion from anyone to continue this hearing till that
To
time.
continue
There
the
was a
hearing.
discussion.
Discussion, thank you.
We need a motion to continue the discussion?
Well, yes, we do, because actually, while it was billed as a discussion, it is the discussion of the proposed modification to a comprehensive permit, so we're going to have to make a decision if they bring it back. If they don't bring it back, it can go off the list.
Would it be
yes.
worth asking to put up a mock-up if it's gonna be if they feel it's substantially different than what's already there.
If you decide to make substantial changes.
Yeah, if you're gonna raise it up X number of feet.
Please inform our secretary, our, I won't call you secretary, our administrative assistant, and put a mock-up, and then we can drive by and say, oh, that doesn't matter, that's reasonable.
Okay.
Or, you gotta be kidding me.
Okay.
Once again, we didn't limit the height on this, though.
We did.
No, we didn't. It's in the
No, we
decision.
did.
No, we did not.
I'll find it in my notes, I kept a whole notebook on that.
Gotta be in the
thing.
decision.
Got to be in the decision.
And 24 square feet is actually 2 square feet bigger than what you quoted. It's presently there.
Just, wait a
So
minute.
it's a little bigger.
I'm going to give you the benefit of the
I
doubt.
thought it included the posts.
Look for one more thing. Hang on. I'm going to do one more thing.
Do you have the decision in email, in electronic form?
Shelley and I have it. We can get it to you.
Thank you.
I don't think we also, with regard to the other signs internal to the property, I'm not sure we have. I mean, I'm speaking for myself, I don't have any opinions about those. That just seems like happy to glad, you're just changing the.
Yeah, they're pretty much the same, it's just the look, the style, and the logo.
Okay, we have a motion to continue this discussion and maybe just a modification of the comprehensive permit to, do you have a date certain?
February 21st?
At 7:15 PM. Can I have a second to that motion?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Continued.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Now, we've got a full house again. Okay, so the next case is a continued hearing, case number 914A. The petitioner Timothy Newfell requests an appeal of the decision of the zoning enforcement officer pursuant to MGL 40A, Section 15, and Littleton zoning bylaw 17325 use regulations for property located at 286 Goldsmith Street. But before we begin, I need to make two comments. One is that I need the alternate who was sitting on this last month.
I think it was Kitty, wasn't it?
You think it was Kitty?
It would be in the meeting minutes.
Pardon me?
It would be in the meeting minutes.
Yeah, I think it was Kitty too, because I was alternating with,
It was just,
I was
no,
not here
just me,
last
Kitty,
it
and I
was
was
just
in
you
the
and
other one.
Kitty, and I was alternating, and you were on the decision I wrote. So, you weren't here, you weren't here. You have to be the voting alternate, because Cheryl wasn't here, so we're gonna do Newfell with
The
you.
case
'cause
was opened and discussed, and I wasn't here.
Right,
you
and I
were
was
here.
here.
And there was a lot of discussion, so I'd like the
So I'm
continuity
just
if you
gonna
don't mind.
sit here and be quiet.
The second thing, I just wanna procedurally, we continued it
Why did you continue it?
because
If you only cancel-
Mr. Newfell made another application. So procedurally, what I want to do is tell everybody what really is going on in front of us. We have,
That was a variance and now
I
it's
read
something else.
I read the minutes. I was still confused.
I'm still confused because the posting on the agenda says it's just the appeal of the decision of the zoning enforcement officer.
So he wants to, so last meeting was about the entire situation, but it included the physical property and the buildings thereon which do not conform.
And
So
this meeting,
this is just to.
About the two trucks.
About having a vehicle and a.
He wants to have two trucks.
Vehicle based with his business and his own vehicle on the property.
Okay,
right.
I just want to be sure we're properly,
Because it said Shelley's, or the zoning board officials had limited him to one truck, and he wanted to appeal that to two trucks.
Okay.
From what I read in the minutes.
so the last hearing we had was a request for a special permit and variances for the following issues. to allow the extension of an pre-existing nonconformity to, if you will, validate the construction of a pergola. That's number one. A special permit and a variance, again, extending the pre-existing nonconformity and maybe a variance to allow the construction of a carport onto an existing garage. I also think that's already been done, and he's trying to validate it. The third thing is the existing garage. And then the last thing is, this hearing also includes the new appeal from a subsequent building inspector decision that he's got to move some vehicles off the property. So does that cover it all, and we're posted properly? The continuation of last month and then the new appeal. Okay. And then I've got John, you as the voting alternate. So I read the new case, and we're also, at the same time, opening the continued case, and I'm going to ask Mr. Neufeld to come forward and present. Thank you. Hi.
So as you said, my name's Timothy Neufeld, and I was hoping to get a variance on the structures on my property, and then as well as the appeal for a second truck, depending on what you want to call second vehicle. I have my own personal vehicle that has to have commercial plates if every now and then I tow something or I plow with my truck as well. So for insurance regulations, I have to have commercial plates on my truck.
What is your truck? What kind of truck?
It's just a pickup truck,
Black pickup truck.
black pickup truck.
I don't have pictures.
There's that there.
Thank you. What other vehicle are you proposing to keep on site?
Just one of my one-ton dump trucks.
Not the one that, not the truck that's in this photo? It's a crane truck?
No.
Okay.
Can I just ask you to remove your hat?
Yeah.
Maybe my problem, but
Hey,
thank
that's
you.
fine, I'm sorry.
Thank you. All right, let's start with the special permit and the variances and try to do this one at a time in sort of some sensible order. So you've got a pergola you described to us last time, and that was like an enclosure over your grill area. And do you have a plot plan of your property? Is that in one of these applications already?
It was, you had one the last meeting.
Yeah, let's open that. Let's see where your pergola is and where your plot plan says things.
Where's the pergola?
Is the pergola behind?
Yes, if you look at the one from the neighbor's yard, it's the, you can see the brown pergola.
So it's this thing sticking out?
No, in one picture, one she has.
I want to see the plot
You
plan.
can't
though.
see the pergola because it's behind the,
Is that it?
Yeah.
The brown roof?
yeah, you can't see the pergola because it's behind the shed and the
Oh, the shed,
garage.
That's the shed I'm looking at.
Look through the-
Do you guys have neighbors complaining?
Yeah, they were here last month. There's a lot of neighbor complaints.
Just because of the amount of trucks.
Is the same place?
This is my picture. my Google
All right,
Earth.
I'm looking at a plot plan
This house is so close here.
that shows
That's his,
Carport.
where's his pergola?
a shed that looks like it's encroaching over the lot line. Has that all been rectified? Do you remember the fellow that was here at the end of the night, last month, and he gave us his plot plan?
Yes.
Is that rectified? Are your buildings now all on your own property?
No.
No.
He put a fence behind it, I have no way to access it.
He fenced off your property?
It's
Can
just
you,
on the
can
corner
you
of the
come up
lot.
and tell me if this is accurate?
Put a fence along the property line. Yeah,
This is your shed?
this is.
Yes, and I didn't realize that was like that until he showed that to me.
And whose doghouse?
That's gone. That's been gone for years.
Okay, so this is a problem still, the shed, right?
Yes.
But that's
So,
not in front of us.
when they put this fence up,
Yep,
the homeowners, Christian was here, he's the son. The homeowners said, we're gonna put a fence up, but we're not gonna make you move the shed. The one-
Okay.
They said, put the fence behind it, you can keep the shed there.
Okay, so that's no longer a problem. Now,
Well,
can
it
someone,
is a problem in that it's not conforming.
except that, that's a movable shed?
Sort of.
It's not something that would take me 10 minutes. I mean, anything's movable.
And how long's it been there?
How big is that shed?
This doesn't show on that plot plan.
Shed's been there for 6 years.
And how big is it?
10 by 16, 12 by 16,
So that was
10 by
also
10 by
placed,
16.
that was also placed without a building permit?
Does it have a foundation?
That has a permit, and it was permitted where it stands.
Okay, that's what I want to know, and that's more than 6 years.
And
All right,
does it have a
let me just make a
foundation?
note on that.
It's on a gravel base,
Well, how is it permitted where it stands?
because nothing was there. The backyard before that fence was put in was wide open.
No, but
Because
there's
he may have applied
property
without an
line there.
engineer.
Yeah.
May have applied without an engineer, he might have done it with a plot plan. Can I see a permit on that?
Don't leave it.
I mean, a permit would assume that it was 5 feet from the property.
It would have been 10, would have been 10.
Yeah.
10 by 16 utility building is permitted. All right, that's one item. Now, the pergola, I can't find it on this plan. Can someone show it to me on the plot plan?
It's not on this plan, but it's essentially right here.
So the pergola is what size?
14 by
This is the pergola right there.
26.
And that's an enclosure like over your back porch or your back deck or something?
It's just, it's
not-
studs going up with
Yeah.
joists going across, and then it's all open.
So there's a question about whether that's a structure.
Well, the pergola
I
has
just-
a plastic cover on top of it.
And I put that on there just to, be out there in the rain and snow and not have to, the dog goes out there, I grill out there year round.
So it's basically like a
How
carport.
far is that
over
from the
there.
lot line?
It's,
On the block plan.
Shelley has her arm up.
it's equivalent with the end of the house. It doesn't go any further than the end of the house, so.
Okay, Shelley, can you help us? This big septic plan.
So, at one end, that's equivalent with the house, it's 7.2 feet.
This is wonderful, thank you.
It's right on the property.
Covered pergola, 14 by 30, and it's about 7.2 from the lot line.
Equivalent with the house.
The closest it's 7.2.
Yeah, and the house, and this is the house, so that was 7.2 from the lot line.
Well,
At the
it's
closest
just-
point.
Just at its closest point.
But also, then, does the pergola go to 6 point?
Yeah.
And also, this is more of it, so that needs a variance if we're gonna vote on it. And then the next thing is, okay, so I see the pergola, I see your pre-existing nonconformity. You're nonconforming as to size of lot, you're nonconforming as to
Side setback.
frontage. Do we have frontage? Are we on
Well, we
Goldsmith?
have Lots of frontage.
You have plenty of frontage, you think, 45 and, 45 and,
Should be back far enough.
Side
There's
setback, he was
150.
non-conforming because it's 7.2.
side setback is
And
non-conforming.
this setback is non-conforming, I think. I think it's less than 30.
Wait,
Looks like
this
it's
is your
21.
frontage? Isn't that your frontage?
You're required, though, to maintain the setback on each street.
Except you can reduce it if you have that.
It can be, yeah,
bylaw.
it can be.
All right, so we got front setback problem on one street anyway, on the Charles Street side. We have a side setback on the, against the Dixon property. We had the pre-existing garage looked like it was okay, so the rear setback was okay before the carport, right? Does everybody agree with that?
Probably, because the carport's pretty wide.
You want to pass
And
it?
this looks like 25 to the carport, so that side is okay. All right, so,
Yeah, so before the
so
carport is built, the
existing
house is-
nonconformities would be front Charles and side. And size, okay. And then, the pergola is proposed to be no closer than 6.3 feet on that side. And then the carport is 20 by 30, and the carport house is what? What's under it?
Right now, my truck, the other truck, if I can have it, and then the 3 plows are currently under there.
Just the plows or plows with trucks? Just the plows?
Just the plows. Because they get, they cost $7,000 a piece, and to leave them out in the elements,
And
they
then,
get destroyed.
But
like,
then-
like the snowstorm coming up now, you would drive a pickup truck to the plow, you'd mount the plow, and then you'd move the pickup truck off again.
The pickup truck will stay at the house. That's my vehicle.
What about the other 2 plows?
The other plow will go to, the other truck will go to my shop, and then the other truck, hopefully, if I can keep it there, will stay there also. So it'd just be those 2 trucks.
You didn't answer me, you've got 3 plows. Are all 3 gonna be working this weekend when it snows?
Yes, but they won't be at the house.
What are they gonna, but somebody has to come with a truck to put the plow onto the truck, don't they?
You have 3 of them in your carport.
You don't pick the plow up and bring it to your other place.
No.
The truck comes and mounts the plow and then it leaves.
Yeah, and I'll probably do that sometime tomorrow. And then that truck will go to my shop.
Okay. Do you have any, you have other employees, but you have a shop now? Okay.
Should we pass this down?
Yes, please. I just want to see what that proposed rear setback is going to be, 5 feet to that one?
My stepson, who lives with me, will be helping me plow. That's kind of why I would like to keep that truck at the house.
Where,
So you're talking about another pickup truck? When you say truck?
No,
You're
it's
talking
just
about dump truck?
a one-ton dump truck.
Just because truck can be,
Yeah, no, I know, sorry, yeah.
under 40,000.
Could be an 18-wheeler.
So
Google
you
Earth, I
may
passed you
not
down.
need
That's why I can't.
Yeah.
whatever the side street is. So,
well, that's what the septic is.
Shelley,
So this is a neighbor?
I was wondering what the septic-
I'd like to ask about the situation
fence
with the
in Desperate
shed.
Yeah.
So it's one thing to get a permit to put on a shed, but
It's only a couple feet.
the existence of a permit doesn't mean that it's properly placed, does it? No. So we would have to give a I can't see how we can get a variance for a shed that's on
Bless you.
someone else's property.
You can give a variance for the shed to be that close to the lot line, but you can't give it on someone else's property.
So we have to we have to consider the shed also as
Yep.
part of this.
Okay.
Yeah, the shed should be moved back onto his property.
Should even be on the property line.
Well, but surely not past
It's
it.
supposed to be 10 feet off the property line?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
Does your new shop have lots of exterior room, I hope?
For what?
Stuff.
can we also talk about the appeals at the same time? So the last letter you got that you're appealing from is from the Littleton Building Department. I'll read it out loud. Dear Mr. Neufeld, this letter is in response to continued complaints received about the business activity operating from your home. You had previously agreed to move the landscaping equipment and were granted approval to keep one of the dump trucks at the home. During the week of November 26th, this office received complaints with photographs that the trucks and equipment were again being kept at the property. This office visited you at the property on November 30, 2018. Observed on that date were 2 dump trucks with trailers holding landscaping equipment and several snowplows in the carport. The storage of commercial equipment is not considered compatible with the residential character of the area and is considered prima facie evidence that the commercial activity or storage is not incidental to the residential use. The Littleton zoning bylaw 17354, home occupation, allows customary home occupations, office of professional persons residing on the premises, handicrafts, hobbies, or activities of a similar nature are allowed. provided such activities are carried on by residents of the dwelling plus not more than one additional employee, and that accessory buildings used for such purposes shall not be placed forward of the rear line of the building. As such, use of the carport for the purpose of conducting a home occupation is not allowed because it is located forward of the rear line of your house. Can somebody finish? I'm going to sneeze. Right there, right there. And then open, right here, and then
And
open.
open and bulk storage of and other equipment incompatible with the residential character of the neighborhood. Based on these findings, you are ordered to comply with the above noted bylaw or cease activity. The rest, I think, is just boilerplate.
No, because this is important, please.
Therefore, upon receipt of this notice, within 30 days, you're ordered to cease the storage of equipment on the site in connection with the above noted business activities. Failure to comply with the order shall result in fines prescribed by law.
And one thing that this said, I just noticed, it says, the carport can't be used for conducting a home occupation, not only because it's more than a home occupation, but also because it's located forward of the rear line of the house. That doesn't mean that we need another variance to allow the carport forward of the rear line if he's using it just for his own carport, right?
Right, if you permit a structure, but you're not using it for home occupation.
Okay.
But this is a classic situation for a variance, because you have two fronts. You have, Goldsmith and this other line. So, from the Goldsmith point of view, the carport is not forward of the house. So, this is.
I thought it was the rear line of the house.
The rear line of the house, so it's behind the house from Goldsmith, which would comply. It's when it's on the side street.
It's a non-issue if he's not going to be allowed to use the carport for business use anyway. It stops being an
Oh,
issue.
I see, that's
But why,
Goldsmith.
but he's not being allowed the use of it for business because of its location. And if we found that the location was such that it could comply under certain ways of thinking, then that wouldn't.
As I read the letter, he's not being allowed a business use because his business has exceeded the home occupation limitations. And they added to this as a belt and suspenders, and furthermore, storing business equipment under that, bulk storage of other equipment is incompatible, and bulk storage of other equipment in a essentially accessory structure that is forward of the rear line. And so we might have to decide if that is forward of the rear line, based on what you just said.
Well, wasn't the intent of the placing it behind the rear line of the house to limit its impact on neighbors?
Well,
And-
he has
and-
no.
And where he has neighbors right back
But on
there.
this property, there is no way you could place it behind the rear line, because it just,
Because the lot's too small?
because the lot, no, well, yeah, actually, yes. the lot's too small.
Let's not get hung up on that. I hear you all, and we have a lot of issues here. Let's talk to the neighbors, their objections, and what's gone on since we were here last, and see if we can start chipping away at the decision process. So who wants to speak from the abutters, please?
Jaguar.
Sure, and identify yourself.
My name is Don Wade, 5 Charles Street, right across from 286 Goldsmith Street. This has been an ongoing process, as we related last time, is that this business has just continued to grow. Started off with 1 truck, then get 2 trucks and 3 trucks, and we're 4 and 5 trucks now. It's been a pleasant surprise to have the lull in landscape activity as well as the lull in snow, so there hasn't been a lot of activity there until he pulled the boom truck back in last night. But
Which truck, sorry?
the boom truck, I think you had a picture of it.
And the only reason that's there is because I have a CDL. It's a CDL truck. I'm the only one with a license. I came home yesterday, I brought the truck home, I had to go referee ice hockey, and I was planning on taking the Christmas lights down. I don't know if you can see me walk, my back is killing me. I can't get in the truck. So it'll be moved tomorrow. I have a shop and it's been there, and Don can probably tell you, that's the first time he's seen that truck.
Well, it's the first time within a month I've seen the truck. I've seen it many other times. But go back after my statement I made last time I was here. This is a residential neighborhood. It's a small lot. We have school children that potentially go by there on a daily basis. When I was living in, Kristen was one of the children in my neighborhood, there were 10 to 12 kids walking to school every day through that roadway to get to the Shaker Lane School. And if it happens now, the risk is that who's going to tell the parent, geez, I'm sorry, I could have pulled a stop to that, but we let them go. I think it needs to be stopped. The truck depot that's there now has to be stopped.
So in the interest of time,
Yes.
we heard you last month. I think it was very clear, we all noted that the traffic and the school children was the biggest problem, and the excessive use of the residential property for business, and especially a business that involved trucks, is a big problem. We've all agreed with that. And I think the board is prepared to do some sort of a modified decision on the building inspector's determination to cease and desist the truck activity. There's no question that that has to happen. What we have in front of us is a request by the petitioner to, I hear two things or three things. First of all, to acknowledge that he could have two trucks and he's identified which two he wants.
Absolutely not. I'm dead set against that.
Okay. And the second he's asked for is the necessary mounting of the plows before a snowstorm.
I mentioned that last time I was here also. I mean, there's been no activity, but this weekend is going to be a great deal of activity, and this trucks come in and out. Every time they put a plow in, they bring an additional truck in, so that's at least two more trucks coming onto the roadway that don't need to be there, because it's a residential neighborhood. So he's got to bring the trucks in, and I'm not sure where he's going to get all his drivers, because the last time he told us that he had only one driver had a license anymore. So he's going to bring trucks in, mount plows. Where do they go to?
And then the third thing he's mentioned here tonight is the occasional need to bring a bigger truck onto the property for one reason or another. I'm just thinking that there are big trucks that go into my property to, I don't know, unload the hay, on a regular basis for my horses. So it seems to me that it's compatible with a residential use, that occasionally you have the septic cleaner truck, or you have the, delivery of the hay, or you might even have a big tree
That
truck
it
taking
doesn't live
trees
there,
away.
it doesn't stay
Doesn't live there or
overnight.
stay
It doesn't
overnight.
start up the next morning and warm up. It doesn't, it's not there idling at 6 a.m. in the morning. It's coming in, it does its job, and it leaves. That's a big difference from one living there.
And the occasional truck, large truck that you're talking about, if you bring in hay in, that's maybe once a year, maybe twice a year. If they
Either it's
do a
monthly.
sewage removal,
Depends how hungry the horses are.
sewage removal, that's once a year, maybe at most. It's
Well, I'm just
not-
saying, it could
it's
be,
not
it
once
could be a
week.
different thing. I mean, the oil delivery man and the, everything.
Yeah, we get
But
it.
that's-
They come and go. They
that's
don't-
coming and
they don't
going.
stay.
All right, so let's go back to, you have the floor for a few more minutes.
Okay, the other thing
Let's-
is, that I mentioned last time also, is that the hub of activity that's there, the non-conforming shed is where they store materials for the landscaping business.
Are you saying the shed or the carport?
No, I'm saying the shed. He has a shed there, and that's used for.
The 10 by
material-
16 shed that's
Well, I'm
over
not
the
sure
lot
exactly
line?
what size it is, but
It's a big
the
shed.
carport is also a factor because it stores the tools, the plows, and sometimes you
So
pull.
the shed is storing material for the landscaping? What kind of material?
I couldn't answer that. I don't go inside it, so.
What's in your
I
shed?
just know that,
Storage that was in my garage, so I could park a vehicle in the garage when my wife was alive.
So you have a garage, a carport, and a shed.
But I can't get a vehicle in the garage.
Why is that?
It's too small.
What's the size of your garage? Can we have that plan?
I don't
Can we see
know.
the size of the garage over there? John?
Garage,
My truck won't fit, it's too tall and it's too long.
looks like it's about 15 by 25. There's no
My
actual
wife had a
measurement.
Honda Pilot and that barely fit in there.
Okay. Okay,
And the shed holds
Sounds like a standard one-car
Again,
garage.
I'm worried about time, and we heard you last time, and if you've,
There are other neighbors here, too.
yeah, if you've stated your case, I'm going to ask another neighbor to
Thank
come
you.
forward. Thank you.
Five garages. Only 4 by 26.
Hi, Lori Bajoyan, and I live at 6 Charles Street. I'm right next door.
Are you this house?
Yes.
Yes, I'm the house. I'm the house that's, I'm sort of encroached on.
Well, you're kind of encroaching on the property line, too. It says your house is within 4 feet of the property line.
Yeah, but it's grandfathered. It's
I
not-
understand.
She didn't build it there.
I
She bought it
imagine she
there.
didn't.
But I know that the carport where all the trucks come in, I mean, you can see the tracks for the trucks that are basically on sort of the gravel, pretty much on the yard. Besides the plows that are in that carport, during landscaping season, there are other trailers that are in that carport that are used, so, I mean, I understand he wants to have 2 vehicles there, and he has had 2 vehicles in that carport, his black truck, and then there's a white truck that's in there. And then his stepson has the car that sits right outside the garage. But our issue being next door is the fact of the 6 AM trucks being warmed up, diesel smell getting straight through the house, and his employees, his drivers, hanging out at 6 in the morning, having wonderful conversations without thinking about the neighborhood. So that can tend to be a little bit difficult. You know, I don't want to cause him any harm, but the fact of the matter is that I mean, Goldsmith Street is pretty busy, and I understand that, but because his house, you know, is on the corner of Goldsmith and Charles Street, and Charles Street is pretty much of a residential neighborhood and a little bit quieter than the traffic that goes back and forth on Goldsmith Street, and it just so happens that the way his house is set up, his garage and everything else is on Charles Street, and that's where all the traffic goes. So, and we had mentioned that before, and it's a little bit disconcerting with, you know, trucks going in and out, blocking the street, having to find another way out because it takes forever to park the trucks or back them in and out of the carport or his area.
Again, in the interest of time, we heard your statements last month. Has the activity quieted down? I heard from Mr. Wade that there's been a refreshing lull. Has the activity quieted down in the last month when he moved his major operation
It's been
to a
absolutely
shop?
beautiful, and I know that there, you know, the bucket truck came last night, but I didn't think anything of it, just because of the fact that the only vehicles were there was the bucket truck, and then Tim's stepson's car was right there.
And-
And his other trucks weren't there, and so I didn't think anything of it because, you know, I went with one truck, you know, one passenger vehicle, so I didn't think it was a big deal, and my first thought was the truck was going to be there to take down the Christmas lights on the house, you know, but having that bucket truck has been there when other trucks have been there, and other trailers and all, so, and it's, in the morning, nobody
But
wants
you
to be hearing
said,
it.
but you said not since he's moved to the shop. That
Not
was-
since he's moved to the shop.
And-
It's been, since that point, he may be coming in and out during the day
With his own pickup
with his
truck.
own pickup and stuff. There might be other trucks. I don't see them because I'm not there.
Okay.
But in the morning, it's great, and at night, it's great because
So it's quieter.
it's nice and quiet.
Okay, can you also tell me, I'm sorry, Cheryl, if just could finish the same line of thinking. Could you also tell me how you feel about the 3 plows remaining under the carport and the inconvenience, if you will, of the preparation before a snowstorm? Like he's going to have to bring 3 trucks to mount those and get right off the property again?
Not happy about that
Okay.
because, you know, also depending on what time storms start or whatever, I mean, it'd be one thing if they were put on trucks right now. I mean, in terms of today, earlier today,
Well,
and
he'll
that's
put them in
perfectly
the middle of
fine.
the day because,
Middle of the day, I don't have a problem with, but I have a problem with people coming later at night and,
well, maybe that time could be
A little bit
Because
more
most
convenient.
most plow guys I know, they get their plows on a day ahead of time.
Yeah.
And they're all set to go. And
Exactly,
they're not
but-
going to put it on the minute the first flake falls.
Oh, of course, especially around here.
Go ahead.
Three plows in a carport are not one truck on a property. That is three trucks coming and going on the property that need to do that for work. That does not fall within the zoning board's, or zoning commissioner's decision, and doesn't make sense to keep them there. It's just, and I'm a little confused by something you said. You kept referring to the son's car. I thought the son had a truck.
No, the stepson has it's a station wagon, or CRV. but-
Theoretically, if this fellow has a snow plowing business and nothing else going on, and it's him and his son driving a snow plow on a pickup truck that they own, and they live there, and their trucks are there.
I don't have a
And
problem.
an employee comes with a third truck to mount the third plow, that is not a violation of the zoning bylaw, theoretically. That's
Theoretically,
not
yeah.
what's going on, but I'm just saying that I've got some sympathy to the plows, because I don't think that's a daily occurrence. I don't
Right.
think that it's such a frequent occurrence that it will upset the entire neighborhood if that mounting goes on in a daytime and not in the middle of the night or at 5 a.m. with diesel trucks running. But that's just my opinion.
Right. But the other thing too is he does have a shop, and so I'm not sure I don't know what his shop looks like, and I don't know if there's space in the shop for the plows, but when you think about it, having two plows, when you have two vehicles there, the trucks that can mount them, that's perfectly fine. The third is just a little bit extra, but I also think it opens the door for putting more equipment there.
I'm hearing you. I'm hearing
Okay,
you.
so-
I'm trying to find a balance between what
Right.
we have in this community, frequently thought of as the contractor home occupation that we don't have a specific bylaw for.
Mm-hmm.
And he's being penalized because he outgrew his space and you all complained. But in a more generic sense, there are others in town who are doing the same thing that didn't outgrow their space. So I'm just trying to find a balance. I'm not.
Well, you
More
could
than
certainly
outgrow
think one
space.
plow would be allowed, because you might just have one plow to plow your own
No,
driveway.
I just said, if you have two adults who drive plow trucks living on that property, they both live there, there's two plows, and they can have one other employee under the home occupation bylaw. So you could have three plows
So,
if his son is
minute,
living
so-
there.
the other issue is the definition of a
That's
truck.
kind of stretching that, no, because the home occupation assumes one person having a home occupation and one additional person. You're saying, oh, if they live there, I mean, what happens if he moves three guys in there? Oh, nope, I have four people living with me, all four of them have
Well,
trucks and
that's the
plows.
balance I'm trying to
That's-
strike,
that's-
Cheryl. It's
Yeah, but
not-
you're already stretching the definition.
If it makes it easy, I'll just move the third plow.
Well, so let me just,
So we
let
can
me
just
just, I mean,
move on.
that's exactly why I'm having, that's exactly why we're doing
That's
this.
simple, I can do that, and my shop is all outside.
No, I didn't know. I
No,
don't know what the shop
everything's
is. I know it's
outside.
on.
There's no
Building inspector.
way to
Hard
hide
for
anything.
neighbors to come
Assistant,
here
wait a
to do
minute.
this.
It's tough for me to do this.
Yeah, it's hard for neighbors to
One
have to
second,
come.
I've recognized Shelley.
The home occupation section does say activities carried on by residents of the dwelling plus one additional employee.
So two residents of the dwelling and one additional employee can do it. Okay. And I'm not trying to stretch anything. I'm trying to find a balance so that you all can coexist in a way that
Sure,
won't
Mr.
disrupt
Solomon.
your quality of life anymore.
Judge Solomon, yes.
Okay.
And I just want to state for the record, I know Don said a lull in business. We've been doing tree work. We haven't stopped.
No, he meant a
No,
lull
no,
in the neighborhood. He
In
doesn't.
terms of the.
No, I know,
equipment
well, that's
coming.
because the stuff's not there. It's at my
That's what
shop,
he said.
and we've been
That's
doing tree
exactly
work.
what he said, and that's what I asked him. That's a good.
So it's like, it's business as usual, it's not that.
If you leave it all at your shop from now on, I think that they're going to all be happy.
Do I have anyone else? I've got a big full house here and a
Yeah,
couple
I know
more
you've got
lengthy
some-
hearings, yeah. So, what does the board feel about the requests for variances and special permits? I'm not hearing from the neighbors that you necessarily need him to take these structures down or eliminate them, provided that we can get a handle on what is the commercial operation existing around them. we've frequently allowed structures in garages and things I'd much rather
I
see.
mean, I'm sympathetic, Sherry, to the fact that his garage is small, and I'm sympathetic to the fact that we now have vehicles that are much larger than original garages that were open. Don't have a problem with the 2 trucks in that carport, you know, for purposes because they fit in the carport rather than the smaller garage. I don't have a problem with that. What I think the problem for the neighbors is, you know, the additional equipment that comes in with trucks, the trailers, everything else that comes in, and then it turns into a truck hub,
Yep, got it.
okay?
Okay. I'd like to.
I got a question.
Yes.
Just in general, so we have 2 structures that are built on the property without a permit. If we give a variance and say, okay, they can stay, do they still have to go get a building permit and go through the process? Or do
Yes.
They do?
Yes, to make sure that they're
That it meets the
not going to
requirement.
fall down on somebody's
Okay.
head.
But we can't give a variance on a property, on a shed that's not on his own property.
Well, that's the third
Well-
question, that's the third structure.
We cannot legally do
Well,
that.
obviously, we can't do that, but we can give a variance for a shed to be within whatever of the law.
I don't think we should give a variance. I mean, I think we could give a variance, but until you have a measured plot
Thank
plan
you.
showing these structures, we can't do anything. We have to do a legal determination that refers to distances and I think we very well may grant you some variances, but we don't know what to do. We have no data.
Shelley?
Roland is okay that that plan is sufficient. It's a 2-scale plan, it's stamped by an engineer, it's stamped by a land surveyor.
He's okay using this
He's okay
plan.
with that for a building
Okay.
permit.
Okay, what I'd like to do is ask the room to please allow us to close this hearing, unless you have any other information you want to present. And we're not going to vote it right now, we're going to take the next hearing, we'll vote you at the end of the meeting. All right?
I did file a permit. Do you still have that from several years ago for all the stuff?
We have to do a new one.
Okay.
So can I have a motion to close the hearing, just the hearing?
Move to close the hearing.
Second it.
Okay, the hearing is closed.
Aye.
Oh, all those in favor? Thank you. All those in favor of closing the hearing?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Can you pass that down the big one?
I just want that back in the file when you're all done with it, okay? Okay. Mr. Neufeld, you're welcome to wait until we deliberate later in the night.
Been there for like 20 years.
I don't think the rest of the night is going to be very long if you want to
Okay, I'll
stick
stick
back. Okay. 7:30 case, I apologize to the room. Case number 915A, the petitioners Theodore and Maureen Nussdorfer, care of Boston Minuteman Campground, request a variance pursuant to Littleton zoning bylaws, section 17326, use regulations, schedule, principal uses for the continuation of the existing use of the campground in a business and residence district at 264 Air Road. Go ahead. Hello again.
Hello again. Good evening. My name is Kevin Conover. I from David Ross Associates, and I represent Maureen and Ted Nussdorfer of Boston Minuteman Campground, located at 264 Ayer Road. Mr. Nussdorfer, his intention is to sell the business to his daughter. So prior to any sale, he went to the town office and talked to the building inspector and other members of the town office to see if there's anything that he needs to do to make sure that everything is in order. By recommendation of the building inspector, he suggested that he come to the zoning board of appeals to get a variance for a use for an existing use that's not currently allowed in that district. This campground has been in existence since 1973, so for almost 48 years, 45 years. It has been in existence in the same location. As the plans indicate, there's a zoning district line that is arbitrarily shown bisecting the property. I don't know when that zoning district line came into effect. I also don't know why it's there. It doesn't seem to serve any purpose. So what my client is looking to do is to seek a use variance for the property to continue the campground use in a residential and a business district.
It would help if we had some graphic represent, do we have, oh, we do.
We do have graphic representation. So we performed a survey of the entire property, locating the existing structures on the property. And as you can see, there's a district line that goes through the property. Not sure why it's there, not sure why it's configured in that fashion. But it's been an existing campground since, like I said, 1973. Pursuant to Mass General Bylaws, Chapter 40A, Section 7, after a period of 10 years, the use is grandfathered. So since 1983, this has been a grandfathered use. So like I said, under the recommendation of the building inspector, he suggested we come here to obtain a use variance for the continued use of a campground in a residential district.
Is it the buyer's intention to expand or change its use?
Not to change its use. There's possibility of expansion in the future, absolutely. Anything that he does will have to go through the appropriate boards in town. He's also working with the Board of Health to make sure that the septic system that exists on the property is in compliance. And we're working with Jimmy Gariffi on that regard. Everything seems to be in order. We're just trying to tie up and get some more detailed information on the system. So like I said, it was my client who actually went to the town office to seek opinions and to make sure that everything is in order.
So based on this, the mess hall is intruding into the residence district, and you have two cabins. I would point out that the cabins don't look like they're conforming to setbacks.
They don't have permanent foundations,
Okay,
actually.
in both in both areas, they're, almost on the property line. But it's primarily the mess hall use that you are asking for this?
We're actually asking for a use variance for the entire property, because the entire property is actually used for a campground. What's not indicated on that plan are there's random RV sites throughout the site, where RVs come in, park, and use it as camping. There's some fire pits.
On the residential land.
Yeah, that's on the residential land. So, like I said, all this use has been in existence for 45 years.
I'm trying to reconcile these two, and I can't at all.
Reconcile what?
Basically how these two overlay each other.
Oh, those are, that is the map that he gives to all potential campers, and it's just a schematic of showing where some of the campgrounds are, campsites are, the RV sites are, where some of the improvements are. That is not to any scale. Yeah, it's more of a schematic and more of a,
I understand, but I was trying to figure out, I guess my interest in this was I was trying to figure out how close do some of the campsites, RV sites, get to some of the residential the residential lots, and how close are some of these things to property lines. I mean, right at the moment, this is a lovely campground.
absolutely.
I've been up there,
It's pretty neat.
I've had family camp out up there. It's a lovely site, and it's really quite nice. And and having it continue as it is would be something I would vote for in a heartbeat. I'm a little worried, though, that if we give a use variance, that the family that owns it now may in the future sell it, and I'm worried what else might go there. What else could, fall under that use variance, what it could be replaced with. We once had someone come before this board who had a business in a residential neighborhood that was a good neighbor, and all the neighbors around him loved him, and wanted us to grant a special spot variance for him, until we pointed out that when he moved, it could become a gas station if we granted that kind of variance. And so I want to understand what kind of variance, what kind of future use if this family ever left us, what could be done here by someone that it got sold to.
Right, and obviously, I can't predict that. And obviously, if anything changes in terms of its existing use, whether they wanted to put 5 gas stations there, if they wanted to put a solar field, if they wanted to put anything there, it's going to have to go through the appropriate boards.
Well,
And if
except
it is, and if it's a commercial project, that have to go through site plan approval.
Yeah, but then it falls under rules of things automatically being allowed.
I want to,
Can we talk about that,
I want to give this board a procedural background for a minute, if you will.
please?
It was submitted late today, and you might not all have had a chance to read it. But under the Littleton town, what is it, the town bylaw, the Board of Selectmen have jurisdiction over granting extensive recreation permits. So while this original campground was permitted by the Board of Appeals at one point, they also received the extensive recreation permit from the Board of Selectmen, and that says it allowed limited expansion into our district to include the picnic area and the 24 by 52 recreational building into the R district.
Which is the mess.
So is that the mess hall? And then it said,
Do you have that, Shelley?
there was also a modification by the ZBA of the 78 variance to allow a one-story garage-style building not larger than 20 by 24 to be located setback from the westerly property line at least 100 feet. This is westerly property line, 100 feet, and from Route 2A, 240 feet. So what building is that, the single-story garage?
Or was it ever
So you're
built?
saying they don't need us, they got everything they need?
I think they already have most of what they, not everything, most of what they need.
I agree
We
with
have-
that.
We have 2 extra cabins because the Board of Health restricted them to 100 sites having to do with their septic system. And so they're exceeding that right now, so whatever variance we want to grant them to legitimate this for sale or finance purposes, I think has to include a restriction to the 100 sites unless you get Board of Health
Absolutely.
approval for that. And let's see about the residents, the encroachment into the residence district. It seems to me that one of my first things here as an alternate was you came before our board seeking those cabins.
They're lovely little cabins.
They need.
And
Air
we
conditioning.
did not say that the camping cabins were restricted to the business zone in that decision in 1993. Your earlier decision in 92 says the variance of the selectmen requires that the camping area of the property be limited to that part of the land that lies within the industrial district. I think it was industry at one time, not business. And the remainder of the property is within the residential zone, and it's to be kept undeveloped for camping purposes. That was the 92 decision. In 93, when we said you can have camping cabins, we did not similarly restrict that to being outside the residential district. And my recollection of sitting on that board is that we were satisfied with the way they were running the operation and didn't see any need to do that. So I see a couple of cabins, and you think there's some tent sites in that district.
Yeah, there's
So-
parking sites, exactly, yeah.
So if we do anything at all to grant a variance, we have to address if it's okay for those camping sites and cabins to be in the residence district, as I see this, right?
This other residential area, do you have anything in there?
The only thing that's in there is the septic system.
You don't have any RV sites or anything up there?
I believe there might be some sites within that residential district as well. The sites are kind of, not how that schematic dictates, but there are campsites sporadically through the property.
And what's the
I
closest site,
remember driving up through that.
what's the closest site to one of the residential property houses?
Well, you have to understand, the site is not a structure or anything, so
Sure.
it's just more of a gravelled area. I would say the closest one is probably at least 30 feet away from any property line, with the exception of those cabins that are closer.
So you could have some sites way up in here, in this top section?
Yeah, but there aren't that many. There's kind of a loop that goes around, almost like, not a horseshoe.
I wish you had located the loop on this.
Yeah, that would have been nice. At the time, we were just interested in locating where the buildings were in proximity to the zoning districts.
Yeah, I'd be interested in seeing what's on each of these residential sites, because this is the one that concerns me up near other properties. This one, I don't really care about because it's just bordered by roads.
The one that
This
abuts
is the one I'd like to see left
the
alone.
abutting properties next to Bruce Street, those properties front on Bruce Street, that's the septic system, that's the septic field itself. So there aren't any campsites down there.
Behind Kraft, Doherty, and LaRoche, there's no
Correct,
campsites.
correct, that's the septic.
So if
system.
we said,
Septic
if we
field.
said something like, we'll grant you a variance for the camping area to be in the business and residence zone, provided that there'll be no campsites closer than, on a 50-foot buffer, a 100-foot buffer, does that
I
work?
think more than that, because people can get rowdy when they're camping.
Well, can we
wanna
make
keep
it
it away.
conform to the zoning setbacks? I mean, the
Well,
zoning
that's
setback is.
No, he
is-
wants it more than that, because of
Well, people can get rowdy in a residential neighborhood as well.
This is different, though, because you're being granted, you're
Also,
being
these are
granted a
people coming
special
and going.
consideration.
So there's
Not
nothing,
necessarily.
there's nothing in
But I
this
gotta tell you,
property?
this is the
Septic tank,
quietest,
yeah.
nicest
Just
little
septic, there's
campground
absolutely nothing
you
else in
ever
here.
That's
ran
correct.
into in your life.
Can we just grant it for here and here then? And,
I think they're gonna,
I think
we're
he's saying.
gonna
there is
limit
something
them,
up
he said he's got some up there already. He's got
in this
some.
one, no, he
Yeah.
said this is just septic.
The majority of that is septic,
Yeah,
whether,
he's got some up here.
It would, it'd be nice if we actually had a surveyed plan that showed where all the sites were, and where the residential and.
It's already existing, this is already existing,
Oh, no,
all we're
but-
doing is legitimating it.
But then
Exactly,
we could approve it, give him a variance as is, which doesn't allow him to make it any bigger without coming
But
back.
I'm
I
not
don't
sure,
mind
At least in this
I'm not
top
sure
area.
that's what we want to do. If he needs to move a site, if he's limited to 100 sites, anywhere on the property except a buffer distance from those residences, what do we care if one site is, here or there?
If he
It's a
does go
campground.
change his septic system, and it gets a much larger septic system, or new technology allows a much larger septic system, wouldn't they have to come back to get more than 100, or would they be automatic?
Yes, they would have to come back to get more than
Right,
100.
'cause the flow would
'Cause our-
increase.
And, because any variance we give tonight is going to limit it
Should we
to
just give him
But
a
are we
variance to
giving a variance?
120?
I don't want to give a use variance. I think we shouldn't. I mean, why do we have to do anything that's, to something that's already legitimated by a Board of Selectmen extensive recreation?
Because the Board of Selectmen said not to expand into the R district, and they're now expanded into the R district for many, many, I think, decades, since 90s.
The thing is, they didn't know where the line was for the residential
But we
district
would
on this.
then, but the variance would not change, because I'm wary, we shy away from this. Every time we do it, the
We're not
hammer
giving,
drops.
we're not giving a use variance.
Okay, that's
We're
fine.
going to give, we're going to give,
The use variance is what allows the gas station to move in.
how about if we give modification of the, modification of the 1992 variance to state that the prior variance of the Littleton Board of Appeals in 1972 can be modified to remove the restriction that camping area be limited to that part of the land that lies within the industrial district, and allow camping areas within the residential district, provided they are no closer to the existing residences on Bruce Street than, and I think 50 or 100 is plenty.
I don't know, I'd almost
You're
say,
doing
like to
property
say,
lines or residences?
I'd like to almost, property lines, I would almost like to say no further development in this upper area. The problem is we don't know what the development is now, so we can't tell 10 years from now if it was increased or not.
Well, we could say no further development in the upper area, but I agree with you, there's no way of knowing. Let's say 100 feet from the property lines, on the back property lines of the houses on Bruce Street.
Guess what I'm
Does that
missing?
work?
I guess what I'm missing here is where's the hardship that says we've got to award a variance? A
They're
variance
already
pretty
existing.
significant.
It's not a hardship, they're already existing.
But they're
really-
existing in the residential area? There's nothing up there except
Yeah,
something?
they've got
See those
campsites
cute
in the
little cabins
residential
down
area.
there?
No, I see that, but I mean, I'm talking about, looking at this upper area here, the Bruce Street side.
They have
They have
campgrounds
some
in there.
I
campsites in
thought you
there.
said there weren't anything, there wasn't anything.
I believe there are some. The majority of that portion of the property adjacent to those existing
trees,
houses
the trees
are,
taken.
is the septic field itself, and it's a rather large field. So,
It's 5.5 acres.
Do I have any abutters to this property? No, I haven't abutter, but are you going to speak to it? Yeah, you want to speak to it?
Ronald Raffi, I have, I'm at 560 Newtown, I mean, 260 Air Road, geez, I gotta think of where I am. And I have no
Oh, here.
problem
You'd find the driveway.
with the campground, I think it's a very well-run campground.
Are you over here?
Never
Yeah,
had-
no,
He's not a
right next to it,
resident.
right next to the driveway.
He's next to
his,
the
yeah,
driveway.
his
Oh.
property
Named on
is
the
next
plan.
to the gas station.
And I just don't have any problems with.
The lot's not developed right now.
Thank you.
That lot's not
Now, one of the things I wonder is the
says that.
92, 93 decision was saying nothing in the residential,
That's what
but
he says.
then
He's
they
right
have
there.
expanded since then.
Because then when they came back for
This was a
an
gas station.
expansion to the cabin
This is a-
camping situation,
Uh-huh.
we didn't restrict that. We said you can have the cabins, and we didn't restrict it to the residential.
a variance.
Yeah, and you know something, this is, to me, this is one of the gems of Littleton, this campground. Cheryl, you said it yourself, and
It's lovely, and
it's the first place I took my family camping when I moved to town in the 70s.
Closest
and-
one to Boston.
It's so clean,
Yeah.
and it's so well kept, and it's so nice, and I think that's the family right there. You've done a lovely job.
But I don't think anyone has an issue, I think it's just
So we
planning for the
just,
future.
we just
in
need to
case there's a
understand,
problem.
Just
we
give
just
those-
need to understand what you want.
So just give the Bruce Street neighbors some buffer.
There's at least 100 feet between the Bruce Street. There's woods, and then there's a septic field.
Yeah.
We're not looking at, we're just looking, over time, things have expanded, and then going to the building inspector, I didn't realize the side by the pool and the,
You didn't realize this area was residential.
no, I knew it was residential, but I didn't realize it couldn't be used, because I'd always used it. It's always been
Right.
that way. I wasn't changing anything. I'm not looking to change anything, I'm just looking to have it.
Just identify,
I-
just identify yourself for our record.
I'm Ted
Good,
Nussdorfer, I
Ted.
am the owner, this is my daughter and some friends of ours, that were interested, I came home to make sure that, because I haven't visited, I wanted to be right. And I knew that there was encroachment, and I just wanted to make it
He's selling it to his daughter.
right in the town's eyes.
around 5 years and sell it, we need to get rid of
After
that.
50, almost 50 years, I decided to have it go someplace else. It still is a campground, we've done the research, and it really does seem like the best interest for the town, for camping industry, to stay as a campground.
So,
I have no desire to change it.
It's lovely.
So my proposal, Shelley, what do you think about this? My proposal is that we vote as a board to modify the extensive recreation permit granted by the Board of Selectmen, as well as the several variances granted by the Zoning Board of Appeals over the years for this property, and then say what we need to say. So we're not granting use variance, we're not usurping the Selectmen's extensive recreation permit, and we're legitimating the spillage into the residential areas, provided, give me a buffer, 100-feet buffer to the
I think it's easily that there.
back lot
To the
lines
property.
Yeah.
of Bruce Street.
Up Bruce
That's
Street.
fair.
And these cabins don't meet
The
that.
closest one would be the one, used to be the daycare school. It's like the third house or fourth house in.
ranch, if you
Yeah.
I think
Robinson.
that's the closest one to the property.
Oh, Robinson.
Okay.
I think I'm easily 100 feet from that.
If we say no further development within 100 feet of the property lines, then we don't have to deal with these.
No
'cause they're
further.
covered in-
There you go. That's a good way to put it. Thank you, Rod. That's a real good way to put it. Okay, is everybody on board with that? Can I close this hearing,
Yes.
please, motion?
Are we going to allow them to expand into the area, the 4.5 acre area over to the left?
Yes.
That's good.
Within 100 feet.
Yes,
100
but the
feet away
variance
from the
also is going to have to limit you to 100 sites unless the Board of
Yes.
Appeals
The
changes.
septic
Yeah,
system is the same.
yeah.
So no
The-
further,
Including the cabins and the sites are still 100 sites.
so the cabins that are within 100 feet of the property line can stay,
Because they're covered in another variance.
because they're covered in another
Yeah.
variance. But the area within this area could be expanded to if they needed to, or it made sense.
Yeah, either one, any additional expansion within the residential area must be 100 feet from the property line.
Can I just clarify what you just said? Originally, you said you wanted it 100 feet away from the properties on Bruce Street.
Well, I said
Now
from
you're
residential, and I don't know who lives.
No, I
in
want
this
them
area.
on the rear line of Bruce Street.
Just the rear line of Bruce Street.
Rear line
yeah.
of
About
Bruce Street.
what's over here?
What about,
Nothing.
I mean, this could
Nothing
be
without-
developed.
I mean,
But it could be developed.
It's residential and it could be developed.
The
Yeah.
campground's there first?
But
No, the campground's there first. He's already moved into that. He's got his campsites there and.
what about just a standard residential setback?
Setback, that's fine.
Yeah, well, he's got that
yeah.
anyway.
Right,
He's
he
got
doesn't
do
have
that.
it right now.
He doesn't, those cabins are not
No.
within not in a standard resident. Do you have to get a building permit for these cabins?
No, they're not on
So
foundation.
you have an issue if he develops in here that he has to stay 100 feet back?
No,
In here?
he doesn't want them 100 feet back. He just wants them 30 feet back on that side. Or what's that?
14.
No, 15, they're
From here?
detached.
But we
They're
don't know
detached.
what's going to live here eventually, just like, they could be
Well,
houses just
the
like
problem
this.
is, Sherry, what I think Rod's trying to allude to is that there could be development done in here, and then they would develop further in the campground further that way. I don't know.
Well, my concern is putting a 100-foot offset from that property line, not on the Bruce Street side. Well, 100 feet would encompass the cabins, some of the sites, maybe even some of the.
That's why I said no.
Just further development.
That's why I said no further development.
Further, but no, okay.
Because the variance has covered
Well-
those
I mean,
now.
we're not gonna make you move anything.
Well, I understand that, but can we just restrict it to the properties on Bruce Street? So in case he wanted to do any further development on the non-residential side where there aren't any residents, he can just be in conformance with the zoning.
We're just talking
setbacks.
about the residential, not the business section in the middle.
I don't want to restrict, personally, I don't want to restrict
I agree with
that
that.
front residence portion. The back residence portion, I have no problem restricting the 100-foot buffer to those residences.
So your sites is 100 includes cabins, RVs, and camping?
Yes.
That includes everything, right? Okay.
So why are you concerned about here when we don't know what's going to be here 10 or 20 years from now?
Because he's here already. He's been here for
That's-
40 years. It may not have been legitimated because of the lot line, but he's there
That's why I'm
already.
saying no further development.
What if he wants to, I don't know, hypothetically, move more cabins in here because cabins are more popular? The foreign countries love to camp in those
Rod's saying
cabins.
then they shouldn't be more than 100 feet. from
Or
the property
50 feet,
No.
some distance back
No,
from here.
15 feet because that's the sideline setback. Let him comply with just a 15-foot sideline setback. He's already there.
So he owns the property, he owns these two properties, the residential properties.
Yes, yes.
Well, it's
And
one
I mean,
parcel
today,
with sort of.
Yeah. I mean,
But
why do
you're,
we-
you
why do
want
we have-
100 feet
I don't
here.
understand, then why do we have even
But we don't know what
zoning?
might-
If we-
what homes
is there-
might be
Isn't there a
here
reason that
sometime.
we had one part, that these two residential zoning, we're just saying, basically saying, we'll throw that out and just let him do whatever he wants? Because we like him? Is that what we're doing? That we're
That's
saying?
what's kind of sounding like.
Sounds to me like that's kind of odd. Somebody else could be in a situation, a trailer park or something or whatever, and they've got the same situation, but we don't like them, so we're gonna hold to the zoning and that. It kind of feels like
He
that.
also is
Just saying.
grandfathered. and
He's
has been here.
grandfathered, he's in there.
Grandfathered to use the residential for business purposes?
Where he is already, yes.
Where he is already.
Doing
Extensive
it for-
recreation.
for
Not
extensive
for
recreation.
Not for any business purpose, for a specific
For
recreational
just the
purpose.
extensive recreation under the Board of Selectmen's.
He's been there more than 10
Extensive
years,
use,
so he's legal
extensive
now.
recreation use permit. We're not giving it to him for anything else. It can't be other than a campground.
So my
under
concern
this.
is future stuff. And if they put in some new camp pads, or sites or something, or they put in another cabin, and we don't know what homes might go in here down the road. So I don't see why a setback here can be less than a setback here. Maybe 100's too much, but 15 is not enough, I don't think. Just to protect the future homeowners in here.
Well, given your statement that no further
Yeah.
development, so it grandfathers the sites that are there,
Yeah.
I guess I
don't want
wouldn't,
to move the cabins.
I wouldn't object to more than 15, but not 100 there. 100's going to wipe out that area.
How about 50?
I don't know
Well, he's
what the
already maxed
scale
out
is
his
here.
space, so it's either spreading out what he has, right?
Or reconfiguring.
Yeah, but he can't, it says right on it, says he can't do more than 100.
It could-
Like I said,
it could spend money on
reconfiguring,
it.
he can still have
But then he
100.
has to ask this board or the selectmen for more than 100, because he's limited to 100.
I thought he was already over
I
100.
thought he was only limited to 100 because of the septic size.
Yeah, but we're going to limit it under this decision.
Oh, okay.
And then he's got to come back here for more.
But he can take
So
away a
it's just
couple
gonna
pads and
Oh,
put
yeah.
in some cabins.
No doubt.
And
Right.
keep it at 100.
What can you give me for setback to the Matheson side, the Matheson lot line? That makes sense.
I'm sorry?
A buffer zone to the Matheson lot line is what the board's looking for.
It's, we don't have, the sites are arbitrary lengths, I mean, there's no physical structure other than the 2 cabins that are there in the business zone.
So what we're talking about this, here's you.
Yeah, so the
We're
backs
talking
of the,
about
backs of
over
the
here.
sites back up to the property line.
So
Okay,
what he's
so can I ask
saying
a
is,
question then?
So
A
if you
pad
want
can go all the
15
way to
feet,
the
50
edge
feet
of
is
the
about the
property,
yellow.
there's nothing we can
100
do
feet
about it, right?
That's right.
A pad can go all the way to the edge of the property and there's nothing we can do about it.
no, but it's not that. If I go camping with my family, I take my car and I walk around the site to the most
Yeah.
level spot and I plunk my tent there, and I'm not looking at a delineated property line. What he's saying is if I put my tent right on the Matheson property line, I'm going to be violating the 30-foot setback.
But that's what I'm
that's
asking,
back.
is
With a
that
stone wall,
even,
they can't physically put it on the property line. They're gonna be in the property no matter what.
I guess
So
that's
you're
what I'm
saying
asking, how do
this
you,
is all
what are we
developed over
restricting?
here already?
Pads,
There are sites
tents,
right
cabins,
On the
all
up-
of it,
up-
all
All
of
the
it?
above.
Okay.
Sherry, 50 feet is the,
It's-
about the size of the yellow.
Level, the high area,
There is a potential conflict if that.
I know you guys representing you, and I know I'm,
No,
I
that's fine, that's
apologize.
fine.
I have no experience with this, so there's an area, this here it drops down, and we do have a playground area down here, and there are sites up here, and they back up to the property line. They not, you can't physically, because it's a
There's a stone
mostly
wall.
stone wall, we
Okay,
use that
so
as
you're
our
saying,
ending
you're
of it.
saying your campsites already go within, right up to this property line, and they're already established there, and so your concerns of the future are moot because
Not necessarily. but-
you'd like to see no further development than that?
Well, yeah, he's there already. It doesn't make sense to make him move them. But in the future, if he's going to plunk a couple more cabins, I don't want him right this close because you don't know who might be living there someday.
Can you live with no closer than 30 or 50 feet for new development in the residential zone?
How about 25?
So, right.
Well, 30
For new
is a...
development, I think that's.
How about, then go with 30, not 50, because you are getting too wide.
So, no new development closer than 30 feet to the residential property line, most westerly part of your site.
I think people, I could certainly live with
Does that satisfy?
Just for new development, what's
somewhat
there, you can
your
live,
assignment?
you can leave.
That's, yeah, for
We-
future
And it
development.
makes sense to say in the residential zone, not necessarily
But-
limiting it to just one or the other.
You have to realize, we have to look to the future,
I realize that.
and there are people who aren't as wonderful as you, and who would do things that wouldn't be as conducive to the neighbors, and, might be acceptable to
But
the
there may be
future.
neighbors that continually complain, yeah.
And we hate it when neighbors come in and complain, or have to come in and complain, because it's uncomfortable for
But at this point, we
everybody.
haven't had no complaints.
No, not from this place. You ever been up there?
But they've been so far
Oh, yeah, I
away.
camped there in 73. Oh, yeah.
Everyone has to be quiet.
I lived in Concord at the time. Me and my girlfriend camped there.
We okay with that? And that satisfies what he needs. So what I'm going to ask the board is a
Modification.
recitation that we're modifying the restriction on the BOS.
So do we decide it's 30 feet all the way around?
No, just
No,
that back. that-
just
that
at the back,
lot.
okay.
It's this lot.
And 100 on the other
100
side,
feet of-
100 feet
okay.
on this line.
And we want to stay with the 100 up here? 'Cause
100 feet from the property lines on Bruce Street for campsites, et cetera. We don't care if the septic system goes within.
Okay, and you're saying that would include this line too?
Hmm?
That would include this line too?
I don't know what that line is.
That's the Matheson
more
property.
Matheson property.
Do I
So is it
describe
30
it as
feet of-
campsites and/or cabins
Is it
within
30
the
feet
residential
around
zone?
here with 100 right
I mean,
here?
I just,
Sites of any type.
you're going to say like 30 feet, I just say
I just
30
don't
feet
care.
from any
Big farm.
property line within the
Well,
residential
until he
area.
sells
Yeah,
off
why
one
would you do
day.
that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's
probably
probably the
the
best.
best.
Yeah, I think that's better.
Fertilizers.
So are we taking this, how far are we taking this 30-foot line? All
He
the way
doesn't
along
want to do
here?
100 anymore, right?
Basically all
So
around
we're
the
doing
property.
100 here,
No, I'm suggesting we just make it 30 all the way.
All the way
30
around.
all the way around with,
That's
for
perfect.
any, okay, that makes
Yeah.
sense, fine.
And what
100
about,
from here and
For any
100
new
from here is
development,
nothing.
anything that's
and
there.
that's just for
can
new
stay.
development?
Yeah.
And what about,
good.
do we need to legitimate that mess hall?
Was that covered in the 93?
Pre-existing non-conforming.
so it already meets your requirements.
That's all set under.
The mess hall is all set, we don't have to include that. And the pool, that's all set. Okay. I'll take a motion, let's close the hearing first.
Move it close.
I'll second.
And I'll take a motion.
Almost sounds like we don't need to do anything.
I agree
Make a
with
motion that we amend,
I want to,
and why don't you say the words, and not make my
Okay.
motion.
okay.
She can't make the motion, she's the chair.
In ratifying the Board of Selectmen's extensive recreation use permit granted, and the subsequent variances granted by the Board of Appeals, the board moves to modify those variances granted by the Board of Appeals to allow campsites of any type within the residential area, provided that no further development of campsites in the residential areas shall be had closer than 30
30
feet
feet from a residential
from any
property
residential
line.
property line. Cheryl, you want to make that motion?
Sure.
Second, please.
Does that sound good?
I'll second.
Thank you very much.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Oh, you're abstaining.
Yeah. I know the point you're going to make, because I was kind of feeling that too, but
If
that's
he was
why,
coming, if it was,
Yeah.
if he wasn't, if he didn't exist already,
That'd be a different issue, but 40 years, come on.
I mean, that's why I was trying to, look at this more objectively, neighbor type of thing.
Cheryl, can I just ask, does that include everybody voting, or are there specific alternates?
No, just the 5 members are voting. Just the 5 members are voting. That's what I'm writing down right now.
Okay.
Rod, Cheryl, Alan, Sherry, and Jeff.
I do like the way you run meetings better than they used to be run. When the alternates weren't allowed to speak.
Oh,
Oh, really?
alternates are always allowed to speak.
Not really. We used to have a vice chair who felt very strongly about alternate privileges.
Yeah.
All right, still running late, but the good news is, the next case, the 7:40 PM case, yes, you can take that back, thank you for bringing it. The 7:40 PM case of petitioner Warren's Mill Realty LLC. I'll open the hearing. Requests a special permit pursuant to Littleton zoning bylaw article XVI 16, Wetlands and Floodplain Regulations 173-37. Use is permitted for a proposed office warehouse structure at 97 Mill Road. This applicant asked for a continuance last month because they're pending before the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission, and we really can't act without seeing the peer review that's going before both of those boards. And so I got another letter this month, and I allowed that they didn't have to come in for it, although someone from Ross was just here, so maybe he could be the proxy. On behalf of our client Warren's Mill Realty LLC, we would like to request to continue the public hearing with the Zoning Board of Appeals scheduled for January 17th, 2019, to the board's hearing in February 2019. We're in the process of research and collecting new additional data regarding the existing floodplain elevation that has come to our knowledge just recently. Therefore, we've asked the town to not proceed with the peer engineer review at this time. Please accept our apologies for any inconvenience this request has upon the board and the public. We look forward to meeting you in February. Please contact me with any questions. So Warren's Mill will be continued. If somebody moves it, please.
So February 21, 7:30.
Move to continue the hearing till, can I move it if I'm not going to be here?
Yeah, you can move it.
Okay, move to that date. Second, you second?
Second.
All those in favor?
That's it, no
Aye.
side.
Aye.
Do we have plans, preliminary plans from them? Have we gotten anything from them?
Yeah.
From 2 meetings ago.
Okay, I didn't get them.
Okay.
Do you have hard copies I can grab? Thank you. I love
Okay,
the fact you got the minutes
we're
right
back
up
on
here.
track. We're hearing the 750 case now. The petitioner, New Singular Wireless PCS LLC, requests for a special permit or a variance pursuant to Littleton zoning bylaws 173-131B5, AD dimensional variance from the height limitation at 559A Newtown Road.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Michael Dolan. I'm here from the law firm of Brown Rudnick. I'm here on behalf of New Singular Wireless. I'll cut to the chase. My client has a gap in coverage in this area of Littleton where this existing telecommunications tower is located, which is owned, the underlying property is owned by the Littleton Water District. 4 years ago, I was before this board and thankfully received a variance to extend that tower by 15 feet so that my client could co-locate its antennas on that structure. We had also received an approval from the planning board for a special permit. Unfortunately, my client's national build-out plans got adjusted, and they didn't build the addition to the facility, and as such, the approvals lapsed. We've reapplied for the same approvals. Last week, we secured a special permit from the planning board, and we're in front of this board once again respectfully seeking a 15-foot variance for the addition of our antennas. I would add that one thing has changed from the previous application is that Fire and Safety has asked that their antennas now be moved to the top of the structure, which will actually benefit them. They'll get that much more coverage with the additional height, and we've coordinated with them, and we've agreed to let them go up top, and everyone seems very happy on both sides about that. So once again, we're here just asking for the board to consider granting us a variance for the additional 15 feet.
I have a question.
Go.
I was up there today. There is still plenty of room beneath the array that's on that tower.
Excuse me?
I was up there today. There is still plenty of room for another array beneath the array that is on that existing tower.
Yep.
Why can't you go there?
That doesn't provide enough height for us to get the sufficient coverage we need to fill our gap.
The town of Littleton Planning Board and put before the town, and the town voted for a height restriction on these towers. That's up on a hill, a very high hill in Littleton. There is a reason that we voted for a restriction, or at least I believe there's a reason the town voted for a restriction on that. You really need to give us much better reason to grant a variance for something the town voted on, even though we granted it 4 years ago. 4 years ago, I was here.
Yep.
And I didn't like it, and I didn't understand it. And I was told that I didn't need to understand it really, that was existing. Since then, I've done a little bit of research.
Okay.
And looked into it, and it appears to me, from what I can tell, that many towers are much shorter, have much higher density of arrays on them, and manage to survive just fine, even when they're not on top of a hill, such as that is on top of one of Littleton's highest hills. I understand if we could put array 1,000 feet up,
Yep.
it would be much better for you. I understand even 15 feet makes a big difference, but it can make a large difference in the appearance to the neighbors and the neighborhood.
Yep.
So you have to, beyond saying that, oh yeah, this will fill a gap, you're not getting me there.
Okay, yeah, well, we submitted with our application. Hopefully you received that. The radio frequency engineer's report, which demonstrates the gap in coverage that we are experiencing. We're also providing FirstNet service, which is a service that will be a dedicated emergency service for the town of Littleton to have access to. I would just add that, there could be a 40-foot tower that could benefit someone, and there are, as you say, 500-foot towers. So it's not that 100 feet is a magical number that, once you do that, everyone will be satisfied. The other thing I'd like to add is under the Middle Income Tax Relief Act, which is known as the Spectrum Act. In fact, the approval we're seeking is permitted by federal law through an administrative approval process. In this case, we wanted to work with the town and go through a special permit and variance process, although it really isn't even necessary.
I would disagree with that, because my understanding is the federal law does allow it, but it also allows local zoning ordinances and variances.
Well, actually, it doesn't.
Well,
It allows
then-
us.
Then maybe we need to go to court, because you're telling us we can't regulate the height of our own towers anywhere. And we certainly are.
No, what I'm saying is we're allowed to go up 20 feet under federal law as long as there's an existing communications facility on the tower. By federal law, we can go up 20 feet with only an administrative
And so
approval.
you go up 20 feet, and then you're going to, then someone else can come back and go up 20 feet on top of that?
I don't think so. I mean,
That's not before us now.
No. I have a procedural question. If we granted a special permit 4 years ago, can we just reaffirm it?
No, we have to have it new because it lapsed.
Yeah, and the special permit was granted by the planning board.
There is a tower there.
No, he's talking about the height variance we gave you.
Oh, yeah.
Has
Yes.
lapsed. We have to give a new height
Correct.
variance. But hang on a minute. Do I have anybody else on the board that has any questions? And if not, do I have any abutters to this?
And I would welcome you conferring with town council on the applicability of the Spectrum Act. We, as I say, wanted to follow previous procedures, to work with the town in a cooperative spirit, but as I say, we have the legal right to add this 20 feet with what's the equivalent of a site plan approval or an administrative approval.
Can I recognize the gentleman? The abutter in the back. You wanna speak first?
ahead.
Sir,
Come up.
you can come up. Identify yourself for the record.
My name is Ronald Raffy. I own property at 561 Newtown Road. I own approximately a little over probably a little over 500 feet on the road that goes up to the water tower. Back in the,
Okay, I know you're right. That, further down Newtown Road.
I've
right
got
next
the
to the
barn
driveway.
and the horses.
Huh?
I have the barn and the horses. And that is my
Those are the
road.
Conservation land.
That's
and then-
my road going up to about 500 feet up,
Yeah.
up that road, and to the water tower. So I own about 500 feet going up there. Now, is there monetary value that is being placed on the cell towers for the town of Littleton?
Oh, God, yes. We're paying rent to the Littleton Water District.
You're going over my property.
They-
I'll get an injunction to stop it.
Okay, so the way it works is they have a legal right with an easement to access that property, and they have an appurtenant right to allow us to use that as well.
The
Miss-
town has.
I'm confused.
Mr. Raffi, you need to go through the chair, and sir, you need to go through the chair and not have direct communication. But Mr. Raffi's made the allegation that there is no way for you to access the cell tower without crossing his land, and I heard you say that that the town has an easement and that the town has the pertinent right to expand the easement for your use. Can you address that?
Yeah, so maybe we can look at this together. So you're saying, where's your property?
Can I direct my board, please? to
Yeah,
what
I'm
you're
looking at sheet C1.
Do you have extras of those?
I thought it was two different properties, no?
There is-
The water tower is like
Are we
further
to-
away than that.
There's two towers on Newtown Road.
This is the existing AT&T metal glass tower?
This is the one on the water
I
tower.
was confused.
This is on the water tower that's way up in the hill.
561 Newtown Road.
Oh, that's where it's going.
The big
Oh,
AT&T tower.
this time the one over
It's
there.
not a big AT&T tower. Okay. I know, but we're stuck with that one.
Calm down.
Could you just show me where your property is that is being crossed?
Okay.
Here's
I'm
Newtown
trying to see
Road.
it.
Here's Newtown
No, it's
Road, and then
behind
here's
the
the
water
water tank up here.
This is it right
So the
here.
Barber
This is my
Chieftain
property right here.
Conservation Land is up there.
I've camped up
All
there.
right, so here's the plan, if you want to come
Conservation
around and
land.
look at it. He's showing us that this is this, I believe, is Mr.
barn.
Raffy's barn.
Okay.
And this is the water tower, and that's up the back of Newtown, well, it's Newtown Road.
Are we in
Very steep.
agreement that the water district has the right to get to the,
We don't
that
know.
property?
This
I
board,
walk up that road.
excuse me, this board doesn't know the legal right of anybody to anything, or
Okay.
has no way of determining that.
okay.
And that isn't what's before us. What's before us is a request for a height variance.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to answer his question
thing we
in the
need to
best way
address.
possible. You asked me to answer that. So what I'm saying is, to the extent that the Littleton Water District has the legal right to get to its facility, what they have done is apportioned part of their right to us as they have the existing carrier on the tower.
But what right do you or the existing carrier have, or Littleton Water Department?
Sure.
To expand what might be an easement to service a water tower into an easement to allow a commercial operation that's profit and revenue generating?
Sure.
To cross over this man's property? That's what he's asking.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is, the water district owns the property up where the tower is, and they have a legal recorded easement, is my understanding, to get to that property, which allows for an apportionment to third parties to
Have you ever
use that
seen that
easement.
easement?
Excuse me?
Have you ever seen that easement?
I have not looked at it specifically.
Madam Chair, this isn't our business.
It's not in front of us.
If
and
you
it's-
want to
yeah.
sue them, sue them.
Yeah.
Bring suit. But that's not, we can't judge that now.
Yeah,
I don't even see any lines on the, I don't see any lines that show anything but a road. I know that's conservation.
And we
land.
welcome that.
Yeah.
If there's any question that we have a legal right to get to this facility, by all means, I would welcome a legal proceeding.
Well, I would personally request that you deal with your abutter in that regard, in some way or fashion, because we've done that in the past. When we have abutters who have opposition that is not in front of this board, we've asked them to please listen to the abutter opposition and address it. And you don't have to do that here at this hearing. We're only the height variance is in front of us. But you've heard from an abutter that he
Yeah,
is
no, I'm
not
trying
certain
to.
whether you have
said
access
we're-
rights.
Yeah,
Okay.
so you do want me to do, I'll do that. I didn't know if we were dealing with just the variance or.
Offline, not
Okay,
here, not in
sure.
front of our board, but offline, you
Sure.
need to
If you
address
could give
this
me your
issue.
contact information, we can do that.
I will.
Okay.
What I was
Any
saying-
other abutters? Excuse me.
What I was saying is that most of that tower is unused. So I don't understand why we need a variance to increase the height of that tower when it meets what Littleton set as its limits presently and voted for in town meeting. I don't see the hardship. And it's mostly unused, and there are other towers in the town, et cetera, that are fully used. And this one has basically one array on it, lots of space, could be filled up just as it is.
So
Are you an engineer?
only addressing
In
the...
this, I mean, do we know?
No, but I
mean,
The
you're
fire
making,
department
you're
wants
making
it to go higher.
assertions. Pardon?
The fire, and they want it to go higher,
Right.
So you also need to know,
right, for better communication.
To get better coverage.
in a procedural context, board, this board granted this same variance, exactly the same. He's not going 1 inch higher than was granted a couple of years back. That decision was dated April 15th, 2015. And the board found at that time that owing to the unique nature of the site and the property and the need for radio frequency coverage, the petitioner had established a hardship satisfying the requirements for a dimensional variance as to height. Also, the special permit granting authority for towers altogether granted a wireless telecommunications special permit allowing the additional 15 feet height, I think I read somewhere on here. Who else read this that will tell me where it was?
You're upset about
Provided they
traffic?
locate the Littleton Emergency Services above and coordinate with the Littleton Fire and Police. I am what?
She was asking about the height, I think.
Are you in a butter also?
Yeah, I'm gonna speak to your, in a minute. They went back to the issue, so I just wanted to catch up the procedural. And then, I guess the
It doesn't
the planning board
specifically
can't
say
do,
15.
yeah, the planning board can't do height, so the
I see.
planning board can't do height, we do height,
Yeah.
so they didn't address it, okay. And then, now I know that you're in a butter, and I'll recognize you, and Mr. Effie, can I ask you to step back?
Charles Howell, 564 Newtown Road, so I'm across from Mr. Rafferty's property. I do have a problem with the height. I had a problem with the height when he went to the planning board originally. I didn't make this week's meeting, or last week's meeting on the planning board. Originally, I believe it was 10 feet, not 15 feet that they were looking for.
It was 15.
15? I don't remember getting a notification of the last Board of Appeals meeting on the height variance.
4 years ago?
4 years ago. and I haven't-
I think I remember you at that.
I have a vague
Was
memory
it?
of you
Yeah,
being
I
here.
I can remember 4 years.
Was your
back.
mother still here? Because I think you came with your
4
mother.
years ago? Nope, she died in 2010.
Okay.
My question, my problem back then too was, what about the AT&T tower? Why not locate these arrays on that? And back then, the reason was they had those microwave dishes up on the AT&T tower. Those dishes are now gone. So, my understanding, and I never heard, never ever been said about it, will these frequencies work on that tower and cover the same area? Because you've got plenty of height on that tower.
Do you want, can I comment?
Yes, will you please answer?
Yes, so that tower is almost a mile away, and as you can see from the radio frequency plots that we submitted with our application, that, you can see where our gap in coverage is, and a mile down the road on Newtown is not going to service the area that we need. Trust me, if there was an available spot there that we didn't have to add to, or at this site, for quite frankly, we would do it in a heartbeat, but that's not the case. We need that additional height. If you look at the existing tower, we'd have to come down to about 80 or 70 feet, which would, or even lower, based on the existing dish antenna, the existing antennas of the town, as well as the existing antennas of the other carriers, so it becomes a space issue.
On the AT&T tower?
On the existing tower. On the other tower, it's a mile away, and the radius we can get for signal propagation from a site, that one a mile away won't cover this coverage objective.
I find that a little hard to believe, since you're going to be in the tree lines on the, even 100 feet up, you're still going to be in the trees. And that's pretty much a clear sight onto Foster Street area and that area that you're trying to cover.
Yeah, this is a report from our expert who,
Yeah, because the last time these reports were done, they didn't even look at the AT&T tower.
were you at the hearing?
Yes.
Okay.
And they
In
said
the-
they did. They said
which
they didn't
hearing, the
look at-
planning board or the
That was the-
2015
That was the
hearing?
215 planning board hearing. They didn't even
Yeah.
look at the AT&T tower because it had the microwave dishes on it, and also at the top of the tower, which everything has been removed. I don't think there's
My,
that many.
my memory on this one, because I always, I don't know why, this site was proposed for a 40B a long time ago, and I walked it, and it's like straight up. So when they came before us on this site, I was concerned about how they were even going to get equipment up there to put it up. And I do recall a very lengthy presentation on the
we
board
had all
about the
kinds of
array and the coverage
boards,
and everything. And
yeah.
we were quite convinced that the only way to hit Route 2 with coverage was this site. Do you remember that? Yeah, it was very detailed, and we had all the engineers speaking all of their electromagnetic words. And in fact, the decision here says One abutter appeared in opposition to inquire, this is in 15, to inquire about access and egress to the site, as well as electromagnetic emissions, disturbance to his property, his view, and noise. I suspect that might have been you if it was access and egress, but I don't remember. And the applicant answered the questions and offered that there be no lights on the tower or the structure, and the noise would not be any different than existing, but they also said no, it was still you, Mike Dolan, from Brown Rudnick, and its consulting and radio frequency engineers presented topographical evidence that AT&T has significant gaps in coverage in the location centered around Route 2, which would be substantially improved with the location and height of the tower array proposed to the board. I don't remember if the AT&T, the applicant's managed by AT&T Mobility, right? So was the AT&T tower not an option ever?
It never worked from a radio frequency
Yeah, that's what I
standpoint.
thought. That's my memory, because we all talked about that
We
then.
we don't seek to add on to or extend any existing structure if there's already an existing structure somewhere else that we could attach to.
Yeah.
No light on that tower, and it's way higher than the AT tower that has the light.
Yeah, on our tower, there would be no lighting. The extension we'd put
I'm
up.
surprised with that height that you're not required to put a light on,
Yeah,
or the water
The FAA
department.
analysis, yeah.
It's only height above ground, not height in the air, so to speak. Not elevation at the top, just height
Yeah.
above ground.
Well, you kind of think that the one on the AT tower is kind of silly then. 'cause
No, but that tower's taller.
The
It's height
AT&T
above-
tower is taller?
FAA goes
Yeah.
by ground height.
Really?
It's taller, yeah.
It's taller than.
Taller than 109 feet?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah, no, definitely.
Much taller.
So that's why it's a height above ground level that
No, I
tells you
know-
the
I
has
know
to be.
that, but
Not height,
Yeah.
not elevation, so to speak.
I never looked at that tower as being that high.
I'm a little confused looking at their map, because they got the one, the AT&T tower is 109 feet, and they have the the Newtown Hill Tower that we're talking about.
So this is an existing facility we have, and then
Okay.
this is our proposed location.
And then
And the
this-
109 feet is the center line height of our antennas if we get the 15-foot extension. This is another existing site. These are existing sites, they have nothing to do with that
Right.
AT&T tower.
So you don't have the AT&T tower listed on here.
Because we don't have coverage there, and it won't work to fill our gap.
How do we know it doesn't work for the gap? We don't even have it as being listed on here, so.
How can we make this company,
Go to a different company's sites,
I just
tower?
think that this is a moot point. It's like saying, I want you to put this business in this location because it's empty, whether I want to do it or not.
That might not
You
even
know.
be for rent or for sale.
Yeah.
Well, if you do it that way, then why does the town bylaw require them to put their towers on town property?
Because the town benefits.
As the town wants the
Still-
revenue
It's
from
still
it.
the same thing. You're telling them you have to do your business on our property.
And it also limits people from getting in fights with their neighbors over where cell phone towers are in town.
My other concern was too.
I got to tell you, my big objection is the town discussed height of these cell phone towers, decided how tall they wanted to vote, was proposed by the planning board, is voted at town meeting. There was a reason that the town chose this particular height, and the fact that there is room on this array for him to put his equipment, even if it's not as high as he wants, even if he doesn't get quite as much coverage as he likes, I don't think we have grounds for a variance just because it benefits him a little bit more to be a little higher. I think we have, the town voted and chose this height for a reason.
But no, I disagree with you. It's like any zoning. Zoning is arbitrary. There's no scientific principle that says everything has to be an acre. We decided that because that's what we wanted. That's why we have variances. If they demonstrate a need to have a higher tower, then that's what a variance is for.
But anyone can
That-
demonstrate a need to have a higher tower, because I
Well,
gotta
you can
tell you,
reject
a
that need,
200,
but-
a 200-foot tower would give him much better coverage.
That's
not
not what
asking
he's
for
asking
that.
for.
Yes, but I'm saying that, you know, it's
He's
all a
asking for
matter of
something that we
degrees.
previously
You want to
approved.
encourage him to ask for a
And you know,
200-foot
I thought
tower?
we made a mistake when we did that.
Okay.
Can I poll the board? I'm actually going to let you have the last word again about what you think federally. you're allowed to do without having even to get a variance from us, would you?
Hold on one second.
And Mr. Howe, did you have one more comment to make?
I'm just trying to figure out where he's trying to cover, because I've been looking at his area, I'm trying to figure out what type of area he's trying to
The
cover.
white area, we have 0 coverage. The orange area is where there's in-vehicle coverage, and green is where we want in-building coverage. So you can see this gap here, and then with the facility, this is how it fills in. Let me just get to their question.
So one of the requirements under the New England, the Littleton zoning bylaw, cell tower. Article 21, wireless communications and facilities. First, number 1, to the extent feasible, all service providers shall co-locate on a single tower. Structures and accessory buildings shall be designed to towers and accessory buildings shall be designed to structurally accommodate the maximum number of users. New towers shall be considered only upon a finding by the planning board that existing or approved towers cannot accommodate the wireless communications equipment planned for the proposed tower. If it's demonstrated that the siting of proposed facilities on municipal land is not feasible, then you can go outside municipal land. And then it says, tower height shall not exceed 100 feet measured from the base of the tower to the highest point of the tower or its projection. And that's why they're here before us, because they're seeking a variance from that 100-foot maximum, which we have granted to this applicant and others in the past upon a demonstration of coverage area and the need.
Where else have we granted that?
Pardon me?
Where else have we granted that?
I think at the water tower
On
on
Birch or
Birch,
Beach or whatever
yeah,
that is.
up in the Lake District.
They're all right on the water tower.
But we
But we
had
went to
some, we
height-
had
we
some
went to height
hearing and
variance on
variance
that one.
about it.
And how tall was the one where they floated the balloon?
That was 100 feet.
It was 100.
Where was that one?
The one over by Spectacle Pond Well.
Yeah, behind.
Which we turned down.
Storage unit.
No, we
No, we approved
approved
it, but it was at 100, it wasn't a variance.
But their variance for that was
There
its
was-
actual
there was-
location relative to a residential
I
area.
see. They wanted to put one over by the Sportsman's Club.
Okay, let me
Yes,
poll the
that's-
board. John, I'll start on your end.
I don't have major issue with it.
It's already been approved and prior. I don't see why we're
Mark?
bringing it out.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it. I think the views towards cell towers have changed quite a bit. I remember some of the early discussions, and it was gonna be the end of, the countryside if we started allowing these. Now they're ubiquitous.
Poisoning our cows.
In fact, I was up there for the Christmas tree hunt. I don't remember seeing that was a great activity. I don't remember even seeing the tower. They've sort of disappeared in the background. You're right, if they said they wanted 200 feet, yeah, I'd give pause, but,
Really?
Yeah.
I don't 200.
Isn't it
but-
green
but-
already?
No, I wouldn't give me pause. What I'm
Tower
saying is
green.
15, I don't even think you're gonna notice it.
And no more
The
fake
water
tree.
tower street.
Yeah,
Fake
they
ones sometimes.
don't hide it in the fake tree anymore.
I can look like a tree.
Okay,
Doesn't-
Cheryl?
Looks like a bad tree.
I just don't see the reason for it.
It sticks
I think-
out more
I
than a
think that
tower
we
does.
need more, better, I don't think we should give variances to height for arbitrary reasons like, gee, we'd like to have better coverage here. I think that our town makes judicious and well-discussed decisions, and the fact that, gee, they'd like to have better coverage in this area, I don't think that that's enough reason.
If I could just add a quick
Yeah.
comment. Hopefully, it's not somebody you know gets in an accident on 2A, tries to call an ambulance on Route 2, and
There is-
doesn't have coverage.
In Littleton, we have, that happens in Concord, because they
Yes.
don't allow cell towers in town, Concord. You can't get a signal in parts of Concord. But in Littleton, there's nowhere in Littleton right now.
Then why are they
You can't
adding
get a signal.
Well, they're
Because
telling
it would be better.
I believe it would be better and that there'd be more coverage.
They have coverage.
You don't have singular, you
They don't
don't
wanna
know
spend
that,
money
you
they
don't
don't
have
have.
singular. You have coverage in Verizon in Littleton. Oh, should I have said that?
Not my house. Not at my house, we don't.
You don't have Verizon, you get AT&T.
We
I don't
did
have
it,
Verizon
we
in my- I don't
approved
have
this,
anything in my house.
4 years
don't get
ago.
anything
I
in your
just
house?
repeat the wording in that.
How
and
can you
just
not?
reissue.
There's something wrong.
Jeff?
Yes.
And
I
Alan.
have a stucco house.
May I close the hearing?
We think
Yes,
stucco's
thank you very
attached to
much.
it.
Move to close the
Movie club.
Second.
Okay. Where's my pen again? Okay, I got Alan and then Rod moved to close.
You look just like you did 4 years ago.
Who's going to make the motion? I know.
They've got 10-year challenge, now it's a 4-year challenge.
Is there
You
anything
gotta keep
in
these
this
in front of
decision
you.
that
These are all you, not me.
I know, how much she
Grant a variance from their.
That's your wrapper right there. Just get another mark, so we just pass it.
Did you notice
I'll
when
read
I
it.
asked one of his, I carefully traded one of mine?
Rod's making a motion,
just to reissue the previous permit?
which is to grant a variance from the requirements of the sections to permit the installation of the tower extension of 15 feet for a wireless communications array to be co-located on the existing tower at 559A Newtown Road, and I'm going to say in conformity with the planning board special permit decision.
Second.
Do we have to include anything about police and fire, or no?
No, that's.
That's part of the planning board, okay.
Planning board, put that in their requirement.
Yeah, I think it's important to
It's
indicate that
seconded
it
by
was
Alan.
approved once and we're just reapproving it.
Liaison council, right?
Is that it? What do we got? We gotta get back to,
I'm sorry, that was, Rod made the motion and Alan seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And Cheryl?
Nay.
Okay.
Thank you all very much, I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming.
And I'll follow up with him.
Please. Yeah, thank you. All right, we have to return to deliberation. The hearing is closed. We're really not supposed to take any further information unless we reopen. So let the board deliberate about the several requests going on Mr. Newfeld.
Did I hear that that shed is actually over his property line?
Well,
Yes.
it's on a plot plan that appears to be, but it also doesn't appear that that's before us tonight.
Well, we're talking about
It is.
setbacks, and if that's a negative setback,
He's
so I
asking
would,
for a variance for
Yeah.
that shed.
Can we require him to move the shed back onto his property?
at least, and the question is, how far can we push it back from the property line? Can we get
I wouldn't care if it was on the property line, but it's gonna be on his property, neighbors.
It doesn't have a foundation, so technically, isn't, are we in the, have we reopened and are we deliberating yet?
We're deliberating, and
It doesn't have a foundation, he got some big trucks, he could tow the damn thing back on his property.
But I just want to understand, so he built these structures which require a building permit
Oh, tough shit.
without a building permit.
Put it in the right spot to begin with.
Apparently has
Put
one
one
for
of
the
them
shed, but-
over the property line because he didn't know where his line was.
well, that's the one that had a building permit, and he showed,
And it's supposed to be 10 feet away.
Yeah, that I don't understand.
So, just because you get a building permit and you build it in the wrong spot, doesn't mean you get,
can I ask my other people to leave the room to discuss Attorney
Go out
Dolan?
there where it's warm.
Apparently, my abutters can't hear what we're saying.
Gentlemen, you can go that way if you want to stay in the hallway where it's warm.
but if.
Thank you.
It's in my understanding that if you get a building permit to build something, and you still build it in the wrong spot, you still can be made to move it back onto your
The
property.
town once made a builder move a house
Yeah.
that had already had a foundation and it was framed, because they put it,
There's one on Foster Street. It looks like a garage right next to the road.
Except Mass law,
That was a house that was built in the wrong spot.
Massachusetts law says if something is built pursuant to a validly issued building permit and it has not been challenged for 6 years, it cannot be challenged by the building inspector or anyone in the
I don't think
town.
that's 6 years old yet.
He said it was over, what's the date, I guess,
Yeah.
just give me the date on your permit.
December 6, 2012.
12.
It's close. And I'm surprised his neighbor hasn't complained and asked him to move it.
you still can't put it on someone else's property.
Probably
Oh,
didn't
my
realize.
property line.
You still have to get it off the other person's property.
Well, we don't know for a fact that it's on the other person's property,
have-
but if we're going
If
to
you're going
give,
by
have a
the,
drawing that's signed by two professional
Engineers.
engineers saying
show
it's
it's on the
in the
other
wrong spot.
property.
the drawing that we have about,
The one that shows the septic
You just
system.
told Jeff he had to accept it.
no.
The
Shelley said
abutter-
this
the
septic
abutter-
system
the abutter-
is acceptable. The shed is not
But
on
it's,
there.
Yes, it is.
This is the shed, and it's
okay.
over the property line.
All right, so the 10 by 16 shed, we could vote to allow a variance provided it's so many feet from the property line. You guys can pick a distance and let him move it.
6 inches, I don't care. Just
It-
get back on
it-
his own
it-
property.
He's not gonna be able to move it much. If he pulls that corner in, he's up against his carport.
He might be able to lock off the
So-
bank.
And, wait a minute. Just because someone builds something with, and he didn't have a permit for the carport, correct? Shh. You guys aren't allowed to help. And we're not allowed to talk to you at this point. So, just because he didn't have a building permit when he built the carport. He had a building permit when he used the shed, but he put it in the wrong place. I'm sure he meant to put it on his own property. The pergola, which gets a plastic cover over it and must be an eyesore for somebody, otherwise it wouldn't be being mentioned.
No, you can see it. I think it's pretty much buried. You don't see it unless you get into the cardboard.
Looks like there's a pretty
You
good
can't see it
distance
from,
to
you
this
can't
house,
see it from
right?
either Gold Street
I'd
or
like to
from that
take
other
this,
street.
I'd like to
One at a
take
time.
everything one at a time. He's got a legitimate building permit for a shed that is over the property line. Is this board's inclination to give him a variance for that legitimate building permit, provided we have a distance to the property line that allows for getting around it to maintain it and paint it?
But he need a variance to a permit that's already been issued?
gonna have to
It would
give him a
be-
variance to
it
leave
would
it there.
be- It would be, right, to variance to leave it there. So I frankly, I see a pattern of nonconformity here, which seems to ring out to me. But putting something on somebody else's property, I think, is not acceptable.
Yeah. I mean, one of the concerns I have is everything is so close to the property line, the carport, the pergola, I'm not too concerned about. But then the house, the adjacent house is only like 4 feet from the property line too. And he doesn't have much land there. He couldn't move the carport to get the setbacks. He can't even move the shed to get the setbacks, other than to get it off the other property. So.
He just has too small a lot
You know,
for what he wants to do there.
Exactly. So, I mean, I'm not too happy with it, but can we make him tear down the carport? I don't know if that makes sense. So I guess we kind of probably have to grant them, but I
We don't
don't think
have to.
the shed has to be on the
We
on the
routinely
property.
grant variances for garages in small lot
Yeah.
areas.
But isn't that,
It's very possible we would have granted some form of variance for this carport. I mean, I'm not excusing the fact that it was unpermitted, but it's also, this is the classic variance lot, because it's got two frontages, you know, what's the rear, what's the side, what setback would even apply here? Would it be a rear setback or a side setback? I guess it's the same.
Well, here would be a side setback,
Yeah.
because these are the two sides.
So,
But that's a detached garage with carport, so are we 10-foot setback?
if it's an accessory.
Well, it's detached, so.
Let's go,
It's a 10-foot setback.
let's finish with the
And-
shed.
What is it,
I think the
half?
shed just has to be moved. I'm not as
And
exercised
we've always
about that.
insisted that people have enough land between their structures and their property line that they can walk around it and maintain it without going on other people's property.
Yeah.
That we've taken that hard line with garages, with even when it meant that they couldn't build a garage, like
Now-
going
But in
down
this case,
Spectacle Pond.
in this case, he doesn't have the room, because if you look at this distance here and you look at this distance, he might be able to get it 2 feet back and it'll be touching the carport.
Well,
So
but
he's
there's
actually
no,
on
but
his
there's no,
septic tank.
it's a carport, there's no wall back there, I don't
Yeah.
think, you know, so.
But he's
in the
also
carport.
on his septic tank, I don't really think.
No, it's not on the septic
No,
tank.
this is this is.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, yeah, so I don't think we can say, give him 3 feet from the property line, because I'm not sure he'll have it.
You know,
could do a
there's
smaller
been a
shed.
fence installed, and he was told that the fence was not installed in the property line, but was installed so that it would leave his shed where it was. We could say something, you know, move it onto your own property,
Or buy that
2 or
piece.
3 feet from the fence, you know, the existing fence.
What about, can I see the pictures again? What about if you give him a variant? First of all, it's a small lot, and I prefer to have people's stuff and junk undercover if I'm the neighbor. So I'd like to give him the outbuildings that he needs for his accumulated stuff.
I think he needs to move most of his accumulated stuff.
Well,
That's another subject. I
and
wanna
that's
talk about
not our
later, but-
business to decide who hoards what, really.
But we're in agreement that he needs to pull the shed back onto his
I
property.
think the shed's got to be pulled back, and maybe that requires
But we are
that it
addressing the
comes down and
business.
he's got to rebuild it.
We are addressing the
Yeah, we're
stuff
not there
that's.
yet, we're on the outbuildings.
The pergola, I have no problem with, as long as if we grant a variance for it. I think it's a gray area whether it's even a structure or a landscape element, but it should not be enclosed.
So you don't want to cover it.
No, they have covered, they don't close, no walls.
Yeah, it can't
So
be,
can we just say we don't need to give him a permit or variance if it's a temporary structure? It's
The
just,
pergola's-
it's just 2x4s with a roof.
I'd rather say we give it a variance and we condition it on not being enclosed.
right,
Yeah,
right.
safer that way.
And should we have also a setback on that, as to how close that can be to the property line?
Yeah, well, it's at 6,
It's existing. and-
it's at 6'8", and it seems to be covering, you know,
Porch
his
or patio.
porch and grill
Yeah,
area,
so no
so.
closer than 6.5 feet from the side, back of that side property line.
You want to hold the shed to 6.5 feet too?
I don't think he can get it in there
Well, but
unless he tears it
Rod,
down and
but
builds it.
Might- might build a
no,
new
he
shed that
can
looks
move it
nicer.
forward and just encroach into the carport. I mean,
What, this, you're looking at this.
no, so look at this. So
Yeah.
here's the shed, and the
Yeah.
back, the carport doesn't have a wall.
No, I know that, but I'm looking here, and I'm looking at this distance, and I'm looking at this distance.
Sorry.
No, no,
Avoiding it.
If he pulls this corner right to the property line, then he's gonna be about a foot or two from the
That's
top.
fine.
Yeah, but if he
That's all right.
if he pulls this
That's
thing
his
straight
problem.
forward, and if it even, just, because there's only
Yeah.
a post there, and there's a
Yeah.
post here, there's nothing across this whole back wall, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, we could try to say he has to pull it in
He
and keep
he
within
needs
3
to be within,
feet.
or give him 2 feet.
2 feet.
He has to be
Yeah.
within 2 feet of his property line. He cannot be, he has,
Closer than.
he cannot be closer than 2 feet to his property line, because otherwise he can't walk around it.
Yeah, if you wanna say that, that's fine,
that's
that
the old
should be
D-box.
doable.
But they put a pumping chamber in and pump it all the way around.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay, I mean, I can live with that if you, and this, I'm not as concerned, if this is 8.5 feet
Yeah, but
and
she's 4
10.
feet, so that's close enough. I'm not
But
worried
if
about
this is
that.
8.5 and the spec is 10,
Yeah.
I'm
Okay
not
with that,
worried
too.
about that too much.
Yeah, so this, I just think we need to approve, you know, and he's right, the pergola's right here, and it's over an existing patio, and you really can't see it. You can't see it from this street, you can't see it from that street.
Yeah.
You can only see the little top of it above the fence.
Pergola problem?
But
So
does
the
it
pergola's
doesn't-
nothing.
Yeah, it doesn't drain
You
off.
can't
into-
ask,
It
you
doesn't
can't do
drain
that,
off
Cheryl,
into
please.
neighbor's property.
No.
Well, it drains
got-
onto his own property.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're in
And the problem
agreement.
is the other
This
house.
is 8.5 feet here, 6.5 feet here, this
closer.
gets pulled in
This
to
is
be
only,
within,
you know, you see
no
the
closer
fence
than 2
and
feet of the
the
property line.
So it's hard to,
then we
it's
have to
hard
talk
to say,
about
well, you
how many
can't
vehicles you can have.
do
Yeah.
what.
All right, so we have variances to
You're choosing the good
change,
ones.
change, extension, or alteration of a pre-existing non-conforming use.
snooze, you
and
lose.
The hardship is the shape and the size of the lot, location of the septic system. And I'm not gonna use the pre-existing structures as a hardship. I'm gonna treat this as if he's asked, de novo.
To locate a pergola, to
Yeah,
locate a
yeah.
shed, to locate a
Yeah.
carport.
Yeah.
And so that's 2 feet to the property line on the shed, which is generous, and I'm sorry, but you're gonna have to move the shed, and then the carport and the pergola can stay.
Unless you can buy that little section of land, that little triangle.
Tried multiple times.
So,
I think they're honestly waiting to see if Goldsmith ever gets sued and they'll sell the lot. Because it's a
okay,
non-buildable lot, because the lot.
okay,
That includes overhang, in that 2 feet.
includes the overhang. Okay,
Okay.
so that brings us to, that satisfies the structures on the land. Now it brings us to the question of the zoning enforcement officer's cease and desist. So I want to preface this by saying, I think the board is inclined to deny your appeal and uphold the zoning enforcement officer's decision that there can be absolutely no commercial use going on in this property going forward, and that you have to cease and desist all the commercial operations and the big trucks and everything else. But I think it's reasonable for us to carve out some of what you asked for, if not all of what you asked for. And given that I got a sense from your neighbors that they're willing to be, they're willing to compromise, board, your pleasure.
One of the issues, the use of the word truck, well, you have a truck for your personal use. A lot of people in town have trucks like yours that they use for their personal vehicle. I think that should be pushed aside and, you know, you're given that no problem, and so on, whatever. So you specifically are asking for one more vehicle
Besides the Honda Pilot.
Besides the ones you use for your personal use. So one more business
Stepson has a
vehicle.
Honda.
And that, you say that's a dump truck. Can you give us a picture of the size of it, or,
It's just the smallest dump truck you can get.
okay.
It's a one-ton
The
dump
six-wheeler.
truck.
Oh, I see. So
It's a
it's like
six-wheeler?
a pickup, is it a pickup chassis with a dump on it, or what is it?
No.
It just has the dual rear wheels in the back.
Yeah, it's a
with
six-wheel
dump
truck.
on it.
Dump
But
truck.
they're dualies, it's not six tandem.
There's two in front and then two doubles in the back.
Yeah,
But it's not a
dual.
giant,
It's a
it's not
dual.
like a Sudak.
One single axle.
Like
Right, there's two axles. Yeah, so I said, this,
Why does he need to have that there when he already has?
Well, I'm
his
wondering
son
if,
has a car.
if we have in town, there are, I see business trucks parked outside a lot of houses.
I know, but
Like, there's the guy on
he has
Gold.
one, he has a commercial truck, which
Yeah.
makes, it's his pickup,
Yeah.
which makes sense to allow there.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we cannot allow it. I mean,
Okay,
it's personal.
he lives there, it's his
Yeah.
personal truck, even though it's got commercial plates. Actually, we can, because it has
There was a
commercial
time when all
plates.
pickup trucks had commercial plates.
yes.
Was there?
Oh, yeah.
Huh. So,
The
so
70s.
that's smooth. You're saying beyond, and the
Well,
son has a Honda
there's two
Pilot or something
prominent
like that.
examples right on King Street. So there's the one next to the Congregational Church that is a FiOS installer, and he has a FiOS vehicle parked in front of his house all the time.
Okay.
And then
It's
and then on the
doesn't
other
make it right.
side, in front of the,
It's
the
the
next.
Comcast truck, but
Oh,
it's okay.
Comcast, right.
Whatever it
So
is.
next to the playground, there's family, I guess
Painter.
there's painters, and their painting vans are there. And they have their own vehicles plus the painting vans. So it's not uncommon to have one vehicle at your home, and that's what it seems like our bylaws
Okay,
allow.
I buy that.
But if he has the pickup truck
But-
and he has the dump truck, that's two vehicles.
But the
not
pickup
one.
truck should not be considered, he could have a car,
And a
you
dump
know,
truck.
he just happens to have a
And his
pickup
son
truck
has a
that he
car,
drives
too.
Let me ask,
around.
the pickup truck has markings on it, or is it just blank?
I don't want to see that other
That makes
vehicle
a
or a dump
difference.
truck on that site.
It doesn't have markings.
It's just like it's a black pickup truck.
It doesn't have markings and nobody knows it's even a commercial vehicle, let's look close.
I don't want plow trucks to have to come to that site to put their plows
Well,
on
I-
at
That's
4
another-
o'clock in the morning.
That's another
Or
issue.
2 o'clock in the morning.
That's another issue, but let's resolve whether we allow him another truck or not.
I don't have any problem with the trucks. He has he works construction and contracting for a living. That's his vehicle that he drives. My ex had a pickup truck, 2 plow trucks, and a 1-ton dump truck when he was doing landscaping and trailers, and it was just him. And I had that many vehicles on the land, and you didn't notice because it's a bigger lot. But that was one guy with 4 trucks, doesn't use them all at the same time, and
But
he didn't
none
have
of-
employees.
But we weren't complaining about you. I'm your neighbor, and we
Yeah.
weren't complaining about you.
You
'cause You had enough, maybe we should have, but you had enough
Yeah.
land that you weren't a nuisance.
But
He doesn't have, he's not located like you were with as much
But
land as you.
the
He
neighbors
is a
have
nuisance.
acknowledged that he moved to a shop. He's agreed that he's not going to do any commercial operations out of that site. And he's asked for the black pickup and a 1-ton dump. And you know something, we could give him temporary permission for a couple of months and have us come back with the neighbors and see if that's been a problem. And then we can retract that permission if it's a problem, and that's the way I'd like to see everybody
I can
compromises.
certainly live with the 1-ton dump, 1-ton.
Say it 5 times fast.
The 1-ton dump truck is permitted to be there on a temporary basis, and if it's not a problem, and the neighbors don't come back and say, oh my God, it's being started at 4 o'clock in the morning, and backing up, and beep, beep, beeping, and it's still an issue, if they don't come back and say that, then absolutely no problem with it.
Well, I don't have a problem with, like, he brought that thing home last night, he's gonna drive it away tomorrow. That's a temporary situation. But if it's parked there every day, 7 days a week at
I don't
night.
want to address
that's a
that. He
different story.
can't have that there. And if he comes home and
It
he's
was
got a,
unfortunate the day before the hearing that you.
and if he comes home and he needs his lights taken down and he needs to bring it home, maybe you could call your 2 neighbors that are here today that are so upset and say to them, do you mind if I bring it home tonight
You want
because
your
I'm taking
lights
my
down,
lights
too?
down?
But there's one thing you mentioned.
Well, that was
there's
the
gonna be a
guy
dump
on
truck
Foster
there.
Street. He would
There
do
needs
that
to be
kind of
some
thing for
noise
the neighbors.
control.
And the
Alan.
neighbors showed up and like, give them whatever they want. Sorry.
I don't understand how, like the Comcast guy who has his bucket truck in front of his house every day, why this person can't have his bucket truck in front of his house every day. I mean, I just don't see.
He's going
Bucket
to.
truck's much smaller than this one.
Or look at the other way, why should that guy have his truck?
Well, because.
Well, and one of the reasons is this lot is small and the driveway is short. And even in the picture, it looks like it's almost hanging out into the street, and they've complained it's a busy street with children and tight quarters and everything like that. So I don't want to address it because we've said no commercial operations on that site. If he needs to bring that bucket truck home for whatever reason, he's doing his own chimney repair and he needs the bucket truck, let him call his neighbors like you would do if you needed to bring your bucket truck home. It's not coming home occasionally, it's not coming home
Where do you keep your
periodically.
bucket truck?
No, but
We're not-
the people who have the Comcast truck, they also have a very, very small.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
and
true.
it takes up almost the
But
whole
it's not
frontage of
nearly
it.
the size of this.
But I'm just saying, I mean, how
But-
do you
and
say
we are
one's okay
letting-
and one's not? I mean,
Where's the
I
neighbors that
don't
have
like
never
it,
said
but
that
it's
was
still.
We're
okay.
saying that his pickup, his commercially licensed and commercially held pickup truck is okay, just like the Comcast truck would be. We're not saying you can't then have this huge bucket truck on top of that.
I'd like to know why the Comcast truck can be brought home every night.
I mean, there's another issue. I'm just saying, if we're going to be a board that
I can tell
tries to
why.
provide some
You're right, it's,
equal treatment for people, I just.
But
think-
one of the concerns I have is if they brings a dump truck home, I don't think it should be allowed to fire it up at 6 o'clock in the morning and with its rumbling and a beep beep when it backs up.
Well, that's what we're talking about, doing it as a temporary thing, and come back in 3 or 4 months, and if it's an issue.
I think maybe we should put some restriction that you can't start up before 7 or something.
Well, what's the town's noise ordinances?
7.
7 a.m.
can you
Okay.
live with that? All right, not before 7 AM, okay.
Can we stop the highway?
So then what remains are
Ours different.
snowplows.
Yeah, the snowplows.
Yeah, and that I'm not really happy with, because he's putting a lot of commercial stuff in the shed and in the carport. And granted, with snowplows, means half a dozen times a year, they have to come and pick them up and drop them off. But it's still, doing a commercial operation within a residential zone.
I'd like to give him 2 snowplows in the carport. He said that each of those trucks that we've just allowed him to keep there is a truck that
The
potentially
dump truck
has
puts a snowplow in
has
it?
the snowplow on the front of it. And then that's not,
Perfect vehicle for
that's
snow.
him and his son gearing their trucks up to
Better
go out in
than
the
a pickup
snowstorm, and only if he does the mounting of the snowplow in, the 7 to whatever. What does it go to, 7 to what? Business hours?
7 to 10.
10,
To 10 PM?
Yeah,
So you
10,
that
10,
means you have to
right.
put the plow on, that means he would have to put the plow on the truck before 10 PM if he thought he needed it at all before 7.
Right, and since it's commercial business, I'm
Yeah,
sure
but
he
you
knows.
normally would do that anyways.
Of course you do that anyways.
Yeah,
Do it a
so-
couple
you put
days.
it on,
So-
bring it
Come
back.
on tomorrow.
So,
the
but
storm's
only
coming
2
Saturday.
plows to be allowed to be stored there that
And-
fit on the 2 vehicles that he has, that he's keeping there.
And on the 110 dump and the 2 plows, I'd like to make all of that reviewable by the board in 4 months.
For the
Perfect,
season.
perfect.
Well, what does that take us to, through the snow season into
Yeah.
the spring?
Yeah.
Okay.
And what about what's in the shed? And how often does that stuff have to be dropped off and picked up?
At your own risk.
He's saying
That's
what's,
my personal stuff's in the shed.
yeah, he's
Oh,
saying.
okay, you don't
he-
have-
he
you
said
don't have
there was no-
landscaping stuff like
He said there was no
fertilizer.
landscaping.
Trailer at my shop,
Okay.
where everything's in there.
Well, he's got a shop now, so he can store,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure he's planning to move all his stuff there, and once he consolidates over there, it will be better for everybody.
And it has been improved, even the neighbors will say that it's, except for this truck appearing yesterday, it's been pretty good for the last month.
You don't want it to backslide, you want it to keep on the way it's been.
No, I don't, background, because I don't want to have to do that here.
We hate
I don't
neighbor,
wanna
we
upset
hate
my
neighbor complaints, they're like our worst problem. No, because we hate the
somebody-
fact
It
you
sounds
have
like
to,
you were very
Somebody's gonna be
reasonable for many,
disappointed.
many years. I mean, why,
Like I said, he started building.
Okay.
Just thought,
And the 2 trucks, and a chipper, and the skid steer with the trailer, so it just.
It just sort of happened.
I congratulate him on having a successful business.
Yes, we're glad.
Growing pains.
Again, in the
Can't be
interest
there.
of time, guys, I'm just going to sort of paraphrase the motion, because I've already written it, and let somebody make it if that's all right. So the motion is for variances for the 3 buildings with the
Yes.
setbacks we talked about. Yes?
Yes.
And then, let's
Under the
vote.
conditions we
2 feet,
discussed.
so let's vote on, let's vote on that first. 2 feet for the shed, 6.5 feet for the pergola.
No enclosure for the.
Carport, no enclosure for the pergola.
And
Okay.
8.5
And
feet
no
for the
increase in
carport.
size.
Okay, can we vote on that one? Second on that motion, please?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay. So unanimous on that. On the building inspector appeal, again, we're going to uphold the decision of the building inspector and deny the applicant's appeal, but we're going to allow the applicant to have his own pickup truck and the 1-ton dump truck, plus 2 plows, to remain on the property, provided they are not in operation between the hours of 7 a.m., except between the hours of 7 a.m. and 10 p.m., and that concession is for a period to be reviewed in 4 months, to see if the neighbors have been able to coexist.
Second.
I know somebody's going to make it. and then
just did.
second it. Okay. Jeff and then Alan. And that was, John is voting on that one. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
So
We
you
did
have
it.
the-
No, I'm
Somehow we
going to
got
pull
through.
an Allen, and I'm going to abstain, because I don't like the idea of the dump truck there.
You're really going to abstain? Okay.
Instead of
Rod
vote no.
abstain, okay.
Hey, I have the gonads to vote no on the things I believe.
Because I don't like the idea of the dump truck. I didn't say I hated the idea.
So, abstaining
The rest of the
means
stuff
no.
is okay.
Because the rules are you have to have 3
that
yeses.
before last time.
Doesn't say the other 2 have to be. So if you abstain, it's the same thing as saying no.
Is it really?
It's
Yes.
not
Except
exactly at
that
all,
add a
really.
statement to it for the record.
Extension is not the same.
Just
I
say,
hope that you guys don't have to come back here, any of you.
Maybe I could have been persuaded. but I didn't want to abstain.
it doesn't really.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your
Yes.
And you get to keep all your buildings.
concessions.
If you build another one,
I gotta tell you, I didn't think you were gonna keep any of those buildings.
Except you gotta move the shed back.
Huh? Should move easy.
I hope so.
You have 3 days to move the
It's
shit.
just, it's just, and if it's not,
how I moved it then.
In the middle of a snowstorm.
Yeah, go on the backside where the fence is.
Realistically, when the plowed out away. A date certain on that?
We didn't tell him to move the shed. We told him that the
let's
shed
Put a cable on the base and pull
let's
it.
give them at least a month.
You might have a truck that's big enough to pull it.
Is there a date certain? It's when you
Yeah,
have to
well,
move
if we say we're going to reevaluate in 4 months, as long as it's moved within 4 months.
That makes sense.
Adjourn?
Are we gonna give him an answer on how long he got, has?
4 months.
Have you worked out the minutes?
Well, we're about 4 months from now. When we do this.
I think it's the building inspector's decision on that.
Bill
We
decided.
just told you you have to move it.
Question though, does,
Somebody ever pulled us.
did Shelley say he had to get a permit, go for a permit, or?
Yes, you have to get
Yes.
permit for 2 buildings.
So, for the other buildings, yeah, so.
File. Oh, I didn't want you to take them if I'm writing all that. No, I want the files to write from. I'm sorry. I'll bring them back, I promise.
I don't know if they charge, I don't know if they charge double.
That one out this
I don't know if they charge double green. You don't want to
I'll bring them back. Tell Shelley I'm the boss.
I
No.
ruined it for everyone.
No, seriously.
I'm well.
One second.
Guys all like
First of all, Janet, we
Sherry, tell you to bring candy?
We have gotten you something nice for Christmas from the board. Thank you very much for serving us.
Yeah.
The minutes. I feel sorry for you.
It's all filmed.
We go through a lot of people.
I did.
It is on tape, you can go back and look at it.
Painful.
That's what she gets paid for. She's the only one that's getting paid.
Yeah, I'm not volunteering.
Well, you can take it.
Yes.
Did you collect from me?
OT.
Did I what?
Did you collect from me?
No, not
My
yet.
last job, I had all OT I wanted.
You might want to, Alan.
But I got all the OT I wanted.
Alan?
That's all fun.
Switch.
Good night, goodbye.
Good night, goodbye.
the can now.
No, I want to change it.